Chapter 1864. Tang Zheng's voice was powerful and resonated throughout the underworld mountain, stirring everyone's hearts. The aura emitted from Hades' Lord's body receded like the tide. He stared at Tang Zheng as though he was really going to re-evaluate him. "What's your plan?" Hades' Lord asked after a while. Tang Zheng had already prepared a draft. Actually, there are many people in the divine realm who are dissatisfied with the god race. However, they don't dare to resist and can only silently suppress their anger in their hearts. We can change this situation. I heard about your deeds in the divine realm. Hades' Lord suddenly said something shocking. This time, it was Tang Zheng's turn to be shocked. He had not done anything shocking in the divine realm, so why would Hades' Lord say that? Suddenly, a light flashed through his mind as he came to a realization. So it was Yu Anying's clone. He had caused quite a commotion in the divine realm, which attracted the attention of the divine realm. However, Tang Zheng had just arrived, so he did not know what Yu Anying's clone had done. He said calmly, "The things I did actually spread to the 9 underworlds. I wonder if the rumors have spread out, hee." Hades' Lord said, "I also have eyes and ears in the divine realm, so how could the rumors have spread out? Since you are right in front of me, it's better if I ask you face to face." "Then I'm all ears." Tang Zheng was secretly delighted as he said mysteriously, "The divine realm has a strict hierarchy, and the god race has many representatives stationed in the major cities. These people abuse their power and bully their own kind. However, you traveled thousands of miles to gather those bullied cultivators and rebel against these representatives. It's a pity that there are too few of you. Although you repeatedly dampened the enemy's spirit, you still suffered heavy casualties in the end. Am I right?" Hades' Lord stared straight at Tang Zheng as he asked in a deep voice. Tang Zheng memorized every word. He was shocked that Yu Anying's clone had caused so much trouble. He had really underestimated him. "At the gate of the realm of the gods, I saw the heads of those cultivators. It was said that they colluded with the enemy. They must have been bewitched by Yu Anying's doppelganger." When Tang Zheng thought of this, he was slightly angered. Not only did those people die, their corpses were also exposed to the public. It was truly vicious. Could it be that they want to use this method to provoke the enemy so that they will attack with all their might and take away the heads to free them? Tang Zheng was shocked. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that it was possible. The city is heavily guarded. I hope no one takes the risk. Otherwise, they'll fall into the enemy's trap. Tang Zheng calmed himself down and looked at Netherlord with a smile. Netherlord is indeed well informed. He generously took responsibility for what Yu Anying's doppelganger had done. "Unfortunately, you have underestimated the strength of the god race. Your actions are like scratching an itch through a boot. They won't be of much use at all." Psionic Lord hit the nail on the head. Tang Zheng didn't deny it and directly nodded in agreement. "What you say makes sense." Netherlord looked at him in astonishment. He hadn't expected him to admit it directly. This was what Tang Zheng thought. Even though Yu Anying's doppelganger had caused quite a commotion, it indeed couldn't be of much use. Seeing Netherlord looking at him in bewilderment, Tang Zheng said frankly, "Therefore, I have another plan." "What plan?" "To solve the problem from the root." "How can we solve the problem from the root?" "The god race created Fengdu and extracted the souls of the 9 underworlds. Furthermore, they extracted a part of them to break the foundation of the 9 underworlds. Similarly, we can also make a fuss about the souls." Tang Zheng said confidently. Netherlord was confused. He was the master of the 9 underworlds, but he hadn't thought of how to make a fuss about the souls. In order to stabilize the foundation of the 9 underworlds, he was already exhausted. He had racked his brains, but no matter what, he couldn't think of any other way to make a fuss. Tang Zheng's tone was firm and solemn. Netherlord couldn't help but believe him a little. He asked curiously, "How do we make a fuss about it?" "You must have heard that many years ago, a genius appeared in the god realm and created a technique called the Heavenly God Technique. This is a method for humans to cultivate to become a god," Tang Zheng said. Netherlord nodded, but he still didn't understand. "Of course I know this person. From this we can see how vicious the god race is. No matter who threatens their rule and status, they will stop at nothing to get rid of them." Tang Zheng nodded in agreement. Even though the god race killed this genius, they can't erase his existence and contributions. The heavenly god technique he created has been passed down, and this is a treasure of the human race. It's also something we can make a fuss about. Netherlord didn't understand. He also knew about the heavenly god technique, but he hadn't really seen its contents. Naturally, he couldn't make a fuss about it. Tang Zheng decided to unravel the mystery. The heavenly god technique is a technique to build a divine bridge. Once the divine bridge is built, humans will have the chance to become a god. The 9 underworlds are in charge of reincarnation, so we can definitely build a bridge in the souls of the reincarnated, allowing them to cultivate naturally in their mother's womb. Once they are born, they will have the qualifications to become a god. Tang Zheng explained everything. This was a plan he had come up with after much deliberation. After seeing the reincarnation in the reincarnation pool, he was certain that his plan was extremely feasible. At this moment, Netherlord looked at Tang Zheng in shock. He thought about it repeatedly and actually found that this plan was flawless. Moreover, it was a brilliant plan that took drastic measures to deal with the problem. The god race wouldn't have thought of this even in their dreams. Once the newborns in the god realm had a divine bridge and had the qualifications to become a god, countless humans would cultivate to become a god in the god realm. Wasn't this what the god race feared? The god race didn't want humans to become gods and threaten their status and rule. Once a large number of humans became gods, the god race wouldn't be able to stop them at all. The god race's rule would collapse on its own. The god race couldn't possibly kill all of the humans. Humans were the source of their power of faith. If they killed them, where would their power of faith come from? Brilliant, truly brilliant. This was a plan that the god race had no way of breaking. Netherlord looked at Tang Zheng from head to toe, as if he wanted to see how he came up with this brilliant plan. Brilliant, brilliant! Netherlord praised from the bottom of his heart. Tang Zheng smiled and said, I'm only proposing a plan, but without the cooperation of Netherlord and the 9 underworlds, my plan is just empty words. Of course I will cooperate fully. Netherlord couldn't help but blurt out, the god race destroyed the foundation of the 9 underworlds, so I will destroy the foundation of the god race as well. They are delusional to think that they can maintain their rule forever. Dream on. Chapter 1865. After Yu Zhu finished reading the jade scroll in his hand, the heavenly god technique was already imprinted in his mind. He was deeply shocked. The heavenly god technique is truly miraculous. That person is a true genius. Yu Zhu was actually filled with respect for the genius who created the heavenly god technique. Tang Zheng was not surprised. When he first saw it, he also thought the same. Yu Zhu should be confident now, right? Yu Zhu nodded confidently. Good, I can use the heavenly god technique to build a divine bridge in the reincarnated soul. Furthermore, I can imprint the heavenly god technique into their soul. From the day they are born, the heavenly god technique will be deeply ingrained in their body. They can cultivate without others teaching them. Tang Zheng said, not only that, once the divine bridge is built in their soul, they will be able to cultivate freely in the womb. The womb is an innate environment, an unparalleled cultivation environment. Cultivation will be twice as fast with half the effort. Then from the day they are born, they will have reached heights that others will never be able to reach in their lifetime. Yu Zhu suddenly realized and asked. Tang Zheng recalled the situation after his son was born. He smiled and said with certainty, yes. Yu Zhu looked deeply at Tang Zheng and said, experts will spring up like bamboo shoots after the rain. Isn't that what we want to see? Tang Zheng asked. Yu Zhu nodded and pondered. Suddenly, he changed the topic and asked, we have overlooked a crucial problem. The heavenly god technique uses the power of faith to cultivate. Without it, how can they cultivate? Tang Zheng smiled mysteriously. How can they not have the power of faith? Don't they have me? Although you have cultivated to godhood, how much power of faith do you have? Yu Zhu disagreed. Clearly, he did not know Tang Zheng's exact situation. The power of faith could pass through space. After Tang Zheng came to the god realm, he already knew this. He could still feel the boundless power of faith in the mortal world. As long as he wanted, the power of faith could be continuously transmitted from the mortal world. The god race ruled many worlds and seized the power of faith from them. It was precisely because the power of faith could freely travel between worlds, which provided them with convenience. Tang Zheng said confidently, I want as much faith power as I want. I have as much faith power as I want. Psionic Lord was well aware of how hard it was to obtain the power of faith and how precious it was. For Tang Zhang to be so confident, there must be a reason behind it. After thinking for a while, Psionic Lord immediately guessed the truth and said, "You have the power of faith of your world?" Tang Zhang was not surprised. He admitted generously, "Yes." Yu Zhu stared deeply at Tang Zhang, as if he was getting to know him all over again. "I never thought that a human would be able to do such a thing, to take the power of faith of a world for himself. This is completely breaking the rule of the gods. Amazing, amazing. You are not inferior to the genius who created the heavenly god arts," Lord Yu praised. This was a huge compliment. Tang Zhang accepted it calmly because he was worthy of such praise. "No wonder you dare to oppose the god race. Not only do you have such great ambitions, but you also have the corresponding ability. I really underestimated you before." Psionic Lord sighed ruefully. "My 9 underworlds has existed since ancient times, but it was unable to give birth to a genius like you. It is truly regretful. Although your world is ruled by the gods, it was able to give birth to a genius like you. I am truly curious about your world. If there is a chance, I will definitely go and take a look. Ha ha ha, after we defeat the gods, I will invite you to my world as a guest," Tang Zhang said with a laugh. He then changed the topic and said, "Time waits for no one. Let's get down to business first. Yes, I will bring you to the Soul Fog Sea." Psionic Lord's voice became somewhat gloomy. The word Soul Fog Sea caused his mood to become gloomy. This was an eternal pain in his heart and also a scar in the 9 underworlds. Hearing him mention the Soul Fog Sea, Tang Zhang's interest was piqued. He had heard others mention the Soul Fog Sea before and knew how dangerous it was. 9 underworlds waved his hand, and the scene in front of him changed. Tang Zhang looked carefully and realized that he and Psionic Lord had arrived at a new place. Tang Zhang's heart trembled. Psionic Lord was indeed Psionic Lord. He possessed remarkable abilities and was not someone the current Tang Zhang could compare to. 2 figures, one tall and one short, suddenly flashed like lightning and stood in front of Tang Zhang and Psionic Lord. Psionic Lord. The 2 of them bowed respectfully. Tang Zhang's eyes widened as he looked at these 2 fellows who were as different as heaven and earth. They both looked like humans and did not have any horns on their heads. However, the strange thing was that one of them was as tall as a giant and the other was as short as a midget. One tall and one short. The contrast was very obvious. The 2's eyes rolled around Tang Zhang's body, revealing a shocked expression as they exclaimed in a low voice, "A living person?" Those who came from the 9 underworlds were either ghosts or natives of the 9 underworlds like them. But this was actually a living person. How could they not be surprised? Psionic Lord pointed at the 2 of them and said, "Tang Zhang, these 2 are Psionic King High and Psionic King Short. They are in charge of guarding the Soul Fog Sea." Tang Zhang bowed in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. "Greetings, Psionic Kings." The 2 Psionic Kings returned the greeting, but they were even more puzzled. Psionic Lord treated this person so courteously. Just what kind of identity did he have to deserve such attention from Psionic Lord? Tang Zhang is an esteemed guest of the 9 underworlds. We cannot neglect him. We have come to the Soul Fog Sea to do something. Just follow us, Psionic Lord instructed. Yes. The 2 Psionic Kings replied. Their gazes toward Tang Zhang changed subtly. Psionic Lord emphasized that he was an esteemed guest. This treatment was simply too good. It was unprecedented. Psionic Lord pointed ahead and said in a melancholy tone, "This is the Soul Fog Sea." Tang Zhang looked up and was stunned. He was in disbelief. He saw an ocean floating in the boundless sky. He didn't know where its borders were. This ocean was black because it was formed by the Soul Fog Sea. The Soul Fog Sea was made up of soul fragments. It was pitch black in color. There were lamps at the border of the Soul Fog Sea, and the 9 underworlds army was waiting outside. They were there to ensure that the Soul Fog Sea wouldn't leave the Soul Fog Sea and cause a disaster. The Soul Fog Sea is extremely dangerous. It concerns the survival of the 9 underworlds, so we can't be careless. It's precisely because of this that I sent 2 Psionic Kings to guard this place, Psionic Lord explained. Tang Zhang was enlightened. The reincarnation pool only had 1 Psionic King guarding it, while the Soul Fog Sea was guarded by 2 Psionic Kings. This was indeed a big difference. Of course, It could be seen that the Soul Fog Sea was far more dangerous than Tang Zhang had imagined. The new reincarnated soul we condense is at the border of the Soul Fog Sea. Once a new complete soul is condensed, the remaining soul fragments will be injected into the Soul Fog Sea. We can't let the Soul Fog Sea flow out, Psionic Lord explained as he walked toward the army. Chapter 1866. Tang Zhang and the Ghost Lord walked up the platform together, attracting the attention of the 9 Gloom Army. When the 9 Gloom Army's gaze landed on Tang Zhang, they were shocked and exclaimed in their hearts, "A living person!" Tang Zhang took in the 9 Gloom Army's gazes. He did not mind, but he was shocked by the 9 Gloom Army's bearing. He had seen the armies of the human world, the Outland Heavens, and the Dragon Clan, but compared to the 9 Gloom Army, he did not have such a strict bearing. The 9 Gloom Army had always been well-trained and dared to fight. Once they entered the battlefield, they would naturally be exceptionally fierce. The only ones who can match them are the Shaman tribe. The Shaman tribe is a natural warrior. Moreover, their ancestors have experienced the Battle of Zhuelu. They have survived the Battle of Zhuelu and have lasted for tens of thousands of generations. However, their warrior temperament has not been polished. On the contrary, the harsh living environment in the 100,000 Mountains has been constantly tempering their fighting spirit. Even when they finally returned to the secular world, their warrior nature did not change. There was only one thing, and that was that there were too few warriors in the Shaman tribe. There was no way they could be compared to the endless army of the 9 underworlds. Such a powerful army of the 9 underworlds is still being bullied by the God Clan. They dare to be angry but do not dare to say anything. It can be seen how powerful the God Clan is. Tang Zhang's heart trembled as he gained a new understanding of the God Clan. However, he was not scared off. Instead, his fighting spirit surged. One day, I will lead the Witch Clan into the God Realm and push the God Clan off their pedestal. Tang Zhang's conviction was extremely firm. The two of them climbed up the platform. High Gloom King and Short Gloom King followed closely behind. They did not say a word. The 9 Gloom Army did not say a word either. The Soul Fog Sea was dead silent. A strong killing intent rose spontaneously, and a huge pressure pressed down on everyone's hearts. This is the place where I condense the complete soul. The Ghost Lord stood on the platform and said in a low voice. Tang Zhang nodded and did not say anything. He understood the heaviness in the Ghost Lord's heart. The Ghost Lord gave the 2 Gloom Kings a look. They understood and passed down the order. Bring the reincarnated souls here. The army parted to form a path. Under the guidance of the 9 Gloom Army, a group of souls walked over lightly. Their footsteps were unsteady, and their expressions were dull. They were completely different from normal souls. Tang Zhang's heart skipped a beat. He could already tell that these reincarnated souls were the remnant souls that Fengdu had taken away. Looking at these remnant souls, Lord Yuzhu's eyes shot out beams of radiance. That was the fury he was suppressing. The remnant souls were placed on the high platform and lined up in a row. Their eyes were lifeless, and even when they saw the Nether Lord and Tang Zhang, they didn't show any reaction. Tang Zhang shook his head inwardly. Sending this kind of remnant soul into the 9 underworlds was truly a huge blow to the 9 underworlds. Yuzhu, if we don't reincarnate, the number of humans in the God realm will decrease. Wouldn't the God Clan be smashing their own feet with a rock? Lord Yuzhu shook his head solemnly. The 9 underworlds have been like this since ancient times because the 9 underworlds have taken on an important responsibility, and that is to reincarnate. This is the foundation of the entire 9 underworlds world. If we don't do this, we will be betraying our duty and the necessity of the 9 underworlds world's existence. In time, the 9 underworlds world will definitely fall apart and be completely destroyed. This is a rule set by the great Tao of Chaos, and it won't change based on our will. Tang Zhang was enlightened. The celestial race was very clear about this, and that was why they dared to do this without any fear. This was completely eating away at the 9 underworld strength bit by bit. Let me try one first. If it succeeds, we can spread it, Lord Yuzhu said. Tang Zhang nodded. At this time, a member of the 9 underworld's army walked up the high platform. Tang Zhang looked at him in surprise, not knowing why. He saw the other party walk with his head held high, and his eyes were resolute. It was as if he had made up his mind to do something. A loud horn sounded from the 9 underworld's army, And then, a song rang out. This song was low and passionate, as if it was specially prepared for the warriors who were going to war. This song had no lyrics, but every syllable hit Tang Zheng's heart fiercely, making him feel as if his blood was boiling. What are they doing? Tang Zheng was even more confused. This was condensing souls, not going to war to kill the enemy. Suddenly, Tang Zheng's pupils shrank. That 9 Underworld's army soldier was already fighting with the remnant souls. Lord Yu Zhu's tall figure stood in front of him, gently stroking the 9 Underworld's army soldier's head as if he was a senior caring for a junior. You are sacrificing yourself for the 9 Underworlds. The 9 Underworlds will remember you. Lord Yu Zhu's voice had a hint of pain. It is my honor to sacrifice myself for the 9 Underworlds, the 9 Underworld's army soldier said loudly, without a trace of fear. Instead, he had the fearless bearing of a warrior who was going to war. His gaze swept across the sea of souls and he said, "Even if that is where I belong in the end, I have no regrets." My good son of the 9 Underworlds, Lord Yu Zhu praised loudly. His voice reverberated in the sea of souls, causing waves to rise in the sea of souls, as if it was about to break through the restrictions. Suddenly, rays of light shot up from the sea of souls, suppressing these waves, and the sea of souls returned to its calm state. Tang Zheng was a smart person, and from these few words, he already knew a shocking truth. Lord Yu Zhu, isn't condensing souls from 2 remnant souls? Tang Zheng suppressed the shock in his heart and asked curiously. Actually, he had already guessed the truth, but he still wanted to verify it with his own mouth. The pain in Lord Yu Zhu's eyes became more and more intense, and he said, "Back then, we also thought that 2 remnant souls could condense into a complete soul. Later on, we realized that we were wrong. The soul that was extracted from each remnant soul was exactly the same, so these remnant souls all lacked the same soul. Even if we used 2 remnant souls, we wouldn't be able to condense a truly complete soul." Tang Zheng felt a chill run down his spine. What a vicious poison. His heart trembled violently, and he said, "Then we have to use other people who have the same soul to make up for it, right?" "Yes, we can only use the souls of the children of 9 Underworlds to make up for it, allowing a complete soul to reincarnate," Lord Yu Zhu replied. Tang Zheng's gaze landed on the soldier of 9 Underworlds. All the remnant souls lacked a soul, so they could only use the souls of the soldiers of 9 Underworlds to make up for it. After the soldiers of 9 Underworlds lost their souls, they couldn't survive and would become remnant souls again. However, their fates were much more miserable than the remnant souls from Fengdu. Their souls would turn into fragments and merge with the sea of souls. This was a scheme that was even more vicious than killing people. Not only was it taking drastic measures, it was also nibbling away at the army of 9 Underworlds bit by bit. In order to condense a complete soul, the army of 9 Underworlds was getting smaller and smaller, and the threat to the god race was naturally getting smaller and smaller. In the future, the god race wouldn't even need to descend on 9 Underworlds because 9 Underworlds itself would be finished. Ruthless, truly too ruthless. Tang Zheng sucked in a breath of cold air, and a chill ran down his spine. Chapter 1867. When Hades' sovereign saw that Tang Zheng already knew about the huge sacrifice that 9 Nether had made, he didn't say anything else. He silently exchanged glances with the 9 Nether soldiers and shouted, "Gather the souls!" The singing from the 9 Nether army became even louder and louder, and a solemn atmosphere arose spontaneously. The remnant souls and the 9 Nether soldiers stood side by side. Hades' sovereign pointed at the stage. An array of light rose from the stage, enveloping the remnant souls and the 9 Nether soldiers at the same time. A painful howl rang out. This was a part of the 9 Nether soldier's soul being forcefully extracted from his body. Tang Zheng's pupils shrank. Although the ray of light blocked his vision, Tang Zheng could still see everything clearly. He could clearly feel the 9 Nether soldier's pain. This wasn't an ordinary physical pain, but a pain that came from the depths of his soul. His soul was being torn apart bit by bit. Tang Zheng was overwhelmed with shock. After witnessing this painful scene, the 9 Nether soldiers didn't retreat. Instead, they charged forward wave after wave. This courage was truly admirable. Even with such an army, they still aren't a match for the god race. Just how strong are the god race? Tang Zheng was aghast. He had once killed a member of the god race that had descended to the mortal world, so he subconsciously thought that the god race was only a so-so. The more he understood and felt, the more he understood how strong the god race was. The god race was definitely the strongest enemy he had ever encountered in his life. Fortunately, he wasn't in a hurry to reveal his identity in the god world. Otherwise, he would really be in danger. The remnant soul was extracted from the 9 nether soldier's body. His miserable howls finally stopped, but his body was slowly falling apart. He was already missing a part of his soul. He had become a remnant soul and was about to turn into soul fog. Hades' sovereign looked at him deeply before focusing his attention on the other remnant soul. He controlled the remnant soul and injected it into the remnant soul. At the same time, he imprinted the heavenly god technique. When the remnant soul and the remnant soul completely fused, the heavenly god technique was also completely imprinted in the new soul. The 9 nether army was no longer unfamiliar with this. The singing gradually became softer, as though they were sending off their comrades. Suddenly, Hades' sovereign shouted, "Tang Zheng, it's your turn." Tang Zheng immediately acted. A surge of power of faith gushed out from his fingertips and entered the new soul. The heavenly god arts activated on its own, using the power of faith to establish a divine bridge. Above the divine bridge, rainbow clouds floated, and traces of faith energy were contained within these rainbow clouds. After a new soul reincarnated, it could use this faith energy to continuously cultivate and advance by leaps and bounds. They were using Tang Zheng's power of faith, which was equivalent to imperceptibly imprinting Tang Zheng's mark on their bodies. In time, they would become Tang Zheng's followers and no longer convert to the divine race. This was what Tang Zheng had thought of from the very beginning. This was a pleasant surprise for him, so he was not stingy with his power of faith. The Nether Lord naturally saw through this as well, but he did not stop him. What he cared about was the 9 underworlds. He didn't care who the humans worshipped. Believing in Tang Zheng was better than believing in the Protoss. The new soul opened its eyes, and it was no longer in a daze. Instead, it was in high spirits. The 9 underworlds army was no stranger to Soul Assembly, but this time, it was completely different. They looked at the Nether Lord in astonishment, then at Tang Zheng, and finally at the new soul. This new soul gave them a strange feeling, and it was poles apart from the previous one. High Netherworld King and Short Netherworld King looked at the Netherlord in a daze, asking, "Netherlord, why is there a change in Soul Assembly? What did he do to the new soul?" An outsider was actually involved in Soul Assembly, but there was no precedent for this, so they did not understand the meaning of this change. Netherlord said, "I'll tell you later." With that said, he waved his finger, and the light beam that wrapped around the fragmented soul of the 9 underworlds army quickly flew into the Soul Mist Sea. The high platform was right next to the Soul Fog Sea. When the beam of light fell from the high platform, it landed right in the middle of the Soul Fog Sea. When the beam of light wrapped around the remnant soul and fell into the Soul Fog Sea, the Soul Fog Sea immediately rippled. The Soul Mist Sea devoured the light beam from all directions. The light beam shattered and was completely devoured in the blink of an eye. The new Soul Mist merged into the Soul Mist Sea, causing the Soul Mist Sea to surge violently with an astonishing momentum. Tang Zheng's eyes did not blink as he watched this scene. He was deeply shocked. Netherlord was unperturbed as he pointed at the new soul and said, "You too, check if there are any changes in the new soul." High Netherworld King and Short Netherworld King were already unable to restrain themselves and immediately rushed over to check. Gradually, their expressions became serious. There's an additional divine bridge in his body. There's also the power of faith on the divine bridge. They looked at Netherlord in a daze, not understanding what was going on. However, when they recalled Tang Zheng's actions during Soul Assembly, they immediately guessed that all of this had something to do with him. Tang Zheng said with a smile, "Fortunately, I didn't disappoint you." Netherlord sighed emotionally. "We really succeeded. This divine bridge was created using the heavenly god art created by that human genius in the god realm. As for the power of faith, it was he who poured it into it. This will be a great opportunity for our 9 underworlds to wash away our previous humiliation. After the new soul reincarnates, it can borrow the power of this divine bridge to cultivate and become a god?" The 2 Netherworld Kings asked in disbelief. Netherlord nodded. "That's right. From now on, humans in the god realm will also be able to become gods, and the god race will no longer be high and mighty. Their status will be in danger. Ha ha ha, the heavens are helping our 9 underworlds. The two netherworld kings laughed loudly, feeling proud and elated as the haze in their hearts was swept away. This is the great plan of our 9 underworlds. You must not announce it to the outside world, Netherlord warned sternly. Yes, this subordinate understands. The two netherworld kings hesitated for a moment before their expressions changed. They bowed to Tang Zheng without saying a single word, but their meaning was clear. They were grateful to Tang Zheng for what he had done, as he had saved thousands of children of the 9 nether. Just this point alone was enough for Tang Zheng to deserve their great gift. Tang Zheng cupped his hands in return, saying, "Everyone, there's no need for this. I also have a great enmity with the god race. We have a common enemy, so it's only right that we help each other and fight against this strong enemy." After a slight pause, he said to Netherlord, "Since the experiment is a success, let's continue. Let's strive to make the next reincarnation souls become like this." Netherlord's confidence was greatly boosted as well, and he said, "All right." The two netherworld kings executed their arts day and night, modifying all the new souls. Because the new remnant souls were injected into the soul fog sea, the waves became even more turbulent. However, they were suppressed by a powerful force and couldn't break free. Many days later, Tang Zheng and Netherlord finally finished modifying the next batch of reincarnated souls. They looked at each other and smiled, feeling extremely carefree. Netherlord said with yearning, "I can't wait to see the changes in the human world after the reincarnation. It will definitely be very lively." Tang Zheng smiled. "I've been in 9 underworlds for a long time. I'm going to leave, so I can help you take a look at the scene after these new souls reincarnate." Chapter 1868. Divine Realm. In a small courtyard, a baby's cries broke the silence of the night. A baby fell to the ground, descending into the divine realm. The cries were loud and clear, full of vigor. Outside the house, a man was pacing back and forth in front of the door. When he heard the baby's cries, he immediately stopped and looked at the door excitedly, rubbing his hands in excitement. "Mother and child are safe. Congratulations, congratulations." A midwife walked out with the baby in her arms and congratulated, but her expression was a little strange. When she came in front of the man with the baby, she hesitated to speak. "Quick, let me see." The man didn't notice her strange expression and impatiently took the baby, saying, "It's a son." "Ha!" Suddenly, his gaze fixed on the baby and he looked up abruptly, exchanging glances with the midwife. The midwife had a sullen expression and asked, "Did you notice it too?" The man didn't rush to answer and instead asked cautiously, "What did you notice?" "This child is very different from other children. He already had cultivation at birth. This is something that was brought out from his mother's womb. He is a genius." The midwife gradually became excited. She had delivered countless babies in her life, but this was the first baby to be born with a cultivation base from the mother's womb. If this wasn't a genius, then what was? A genius. The man muttered to himself. Suddenly, as if he had just woken up from a dream, he was wild with joy and laughed loudly. "Ha ha ha, a genius, my son is a genius." Tang Zheng stood on the wall and looked at this scene with a satisfied smile. The people in the courtyard didn't notice him at all. Only the newborn baby opened his hazy eyes and looked in his direction. "Ghost Lord, our plan succeeded." He jumped down the wall and silently walked through the streets. This night, many babies were crying out, and countless families were crying out in surprise. Geniuses were born like bamboo shoots after the rain, and normal people didn't notice this strange event at all. Because, that night, another matter attracted everyone's attention. This city seemed to be boiling with excitement. Tang Zheng heard the sounds of fighting coming from the city gate from afar. He raised his head in surprise. He could faintly see the light of a transcendent artifact coming from the city gate. That was the sign of people fighting. There were people fighting at the city gate. Tang Zheng's heart skipped a beat, and he quickly came to the city gate. He saw a lot of people fighting together. To be more precise, it was a large group of experts besieging a few people. These people were standing on the city wall. A few of them were blocking the enemies, while the others were busy collecting the heads hanging high on the city wall. When Tang Zheng first entered the city, he was also attracted by these heads. It was said that these heads belonged to people who opposed the god race, but he didn't know who they were. Obviously, These people were the companions of the deceased. They actually came to collect the corpses despite the danger. It was a pity that the enemy had already set up an ambush, and as soon as they appeared, they would attack together. Someone from the divine world who dares to go against the God clan? Interesting. These people can't fight against the enemy. I need to find a chance to save them. Tang Zheng made a decision in an instant, but he was not in a hurry to make a move. He wanted to see the details of these people first. Moreover, these people would only be more grateful to him if he saved them at the most critical moment. In a flash, they had already collected the heads and activated their magical weapons to fight the enemy. You are a group of dogs of the God race. The God race oppresses us humans, and you actually help them. One day, you will pay the price for what you have done. In the crowd, a woman shouted angrily. Death is near and you still dare to be so sharp-tongued. When we capture you, you will know how to cry. A general standing on the city wall said arrogantly, what is there to be afraid of? Even if we die, we will not be dogs. We want freedom and dignity. Do you dogs have those? The others were also filled with righteous indignation and shouted loudly. The general's face was ashen. He threw his palm into the air and a cold light flew out from his palm, turning into a long spear. It was a brilliant magical weapon. He pointed it at the group and said, stubbornly stubborn, even death can't wipe out your crimes. Kill. The general roared and arrived in front of the group in the blink of an eye. His long spear was like a dragon, and waves of dragon roars resounded through the sky. The few people reacted in a panic. They activated their magical weapons, and rays of light filled the sky, turning the city gate into daytime. However, the difference in strength between the two sides was too great. The long spear was like a dragon, shuttling back and forth between the few people. Ping 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 ping. Countless magical weapons fell. The long spear pierced through the sky and took the woman's head. The woman had already lost her magical weapon. She hurriedly retreated, but the long spear had locked onto her, and she could not retreat. Just as she was in despair, a figure appeared in front of her. She looked up in surprise. This person came too fast, and she could not defend herself at all. She saw this person stretch out a finger and gently point at the long spear. The long spear turned into an angry dragon. It opened its ferocious dragon mouth and kept roaring. However, when this person's finger touched the center of the dragon's head immediately stopped. The diving body actually stopped in an instant. Everyone looked at this scene in horror. This person actually used a finger to stop the spear. Who was he? Before they could guess this person's identity, they heard a loud crack. The long spear cracked and turned into fragments, scattering all over the ground. The general's magical weapon was destroyed. His mind was greatly shaken, and he spat out blood. He looked at this person in horror and anger. He angrily shouted, "Who are you?" This person did not answer him. Instead, he said indifferently, "I'll let you see what a true dragon is." As soon as he finished speaking, this person's body emitted a golden light that shot into the sky. He actually turned into a golden dragon. It was incomparably huge, and it crossed over everyone's heads as if it was looking down on ants. The general was scared out of his wits. He ran away. However, he was still one step too late. The dragon claw reached out and caught him. Boom! With an explosion, this person turned into flesh and blood that filled the sky. His soul was scattered. The other enemies were already scared silly. When the dragon looked over, it was as if a spell had been cast on them. They stood still on the spot. The divine dragon shook his body and turned back into a human. He said to the woman and the others, "Let's go." He took the lead and flew down the city wall. The others seemed to have woken up from a dream. They followed closely behind and disappeared into the night. When they had escaped far away, they stopped. The woman looked at the man opposite her in horror and asked, "Who are you? Why did you save me?" This person was, of course, Tang Zheng. He looked around and sized them up with interest. He said, "I saw that you guys did not hesitate to sacrifice yourselves to save your companions. This heroic spirit is admirable, so I helped." When the woman heard this, she was embarrassed. She blushed and waved her hand. "How is this heroic spirit? It was just a small matter. Those who died are the heroes. They fought for humanity. It's a pity that there are too many ignorant people in this world. They help the evildoers and harm their own people. Chapter 1869. The woman and the others stared at Tang Zheng with burning eyes, anticipating Tang Zheng's answer. Tang Zheng pondered for a moment, then said, "My name is Tang Zheng." He wasn't sure if Yuanying's doppelganger used this name in the god realm, but he still told her the truth. "All right, we will remember our benefactor's name." It was obvious that this was the first time the woman had heard this name. Tang Zheng let out a sigh of relief and asked, "What do you plan to do next?" The woman and the others glanced at each other, then the woman said, "We plan to look for a mysterious person." "A mysterious person?" Tang Zheng raised an eyebrow and asked curiously. "Yes, it is said that a mysterious expert has appeared in the god realm. He alone has taken up the banner to fight against the god race. There are already many rumors about him in many places. He is a role model for us humans who are dissatisfied with the oppression of the god race. Therefore, we will look for him and serve under him," the woman said with yearning. Obviously, everyone looked up to this mysterious expert and worshipped him greatly. Tang Zheng's expression became strange. Could this mysterious expert be his Yuanying doppelganger? Back then, Yuanying's doppelganger had abandoned him. He didn't know where he was now or how he was doing. Since Tang Zheng had come to the god realm, he didn't mind meeting him. The woman saw that Tang Zheng had fallen silent and hesitated for a moment before advising, "Benefactor, you are also an expert. Moreover, you are the same as us. Why don't you come with us to look for this mysterious expert? Let me tell you, it is said that this person has cultivated to the god realm and his strength is not inferior to the god race. Under his leadership, our human race will definitely be able to break free from our shackles." The more the woman spoke, the more excited she became. She was full of hope and expectation. Tang Zheng smiled and said, "Since you are so kind, then let's go together." "Really? That's great." The woman was so excited that she almost jumped up. "Do you know where he is?" Tang Zheng asked curiously. The woman said in a low voice, "I heard the news before coming. It is said that this person has recently appeared near the Hongjun mountain range." "Then let's go quickly." Tang Zheng couldn't wait to see Yuanying's clone. As they set off, Tang Zheng learned the woman's name. Her name was Bai Kuei, and she was already in the middle stage of Yuanying. Tang Zheng nodded inwardly. The cultivators in the realm of the gods were indeed extraordinary. She was only in her 20s, yet she was already in the middle stage of Yuanying. How many cultivators in the mortal world could only reach this stage in their lifetime? Of course that was in the past. Now, the world had undergone earth-shaking changes. Yuanying and even higher-level cultivators were popping up like bamboo shoots after the rain. Bai Luo looked at Tang Zheng curiously and asked, "You defeated the enemy so easily, you must be at the Mahayana realm, right?" Tang Zheng smiled and declined to comment. He couldn't possibly say that he had already cultivated to become a god. That would be suspected of boasting. Besides, he didn't want to scare these people. However, Bai Luo misunderstood and thought that she had guessed correctly. She said excitedly, "You're so young, yet you've already cultivated to the Mahayana realm. You're too amazing. I want to learn from you. I hope you won't be stingy with your guidance along the way." Tang Zheng said casually, "Let's discuss it together." Along the way, everyone asked Tang Zheng for guidance on their cultivation. They all felt enlightened, and their cultivations rapidly increased. Bai Luo excitedly told Tang Zheng that she had faintly touched the threshold of the deity transformation realm. She would definitely be able to cross this threshold in the future. In short, both sides had gained something. Tang Zheng also learned a lot of information about the realm of the gods from them. There were many cities in the realm of the gods, and each city had a city lord who ruled the realm of the gods on behalf of the gods. Everyone in the realm of the gods was a cultivator with different levels of strength. The cultivation of each city lord was also different. The highest was in the sage realm, but the lowest was in the Mahayana realm. There were no sects in the realm of the gods, and it was all ruled by large cities. There were also villages and small towns outside the cities, but they couldn't be compared to the cities. The Hongjun mountain range was located in the northern part of the realm of the gods. It was a place of extreme cold, and normal humans wouldn't go there. However, it wasn't completely uninhabited. For cultivators who cultivated ice and snow, the Hongjun mountain range was an excellent place. Bai Luo inadvertently revealed something that attracted Tang Zheng's interest. It turned out that there were temples and altars built in every city, where the gods were enshrined and worshipped by the people. If I knew there were temples, I would have gone to the city to investigate and see how the gods absorb the power of faith from humans. Without a doubt, these temples and altars were for the purpose of absorbing the power of faith. He was doing the same in the human world. When humans worshipped the temples, their sense of belonging to the gods would become even stronger. They would contribute even more power of faith, and the gods' rule would become even more firm. If there's a chance, I must go take a look at the temples. Tang Zheng made up his mind. A few days later, the group finally arrived at the Hongjun mountain range. They saw that the mountain range was covered in white snow, and they couldn't see the end of it at a glance. However, there was a tall peak at the heart of the Hongjun mountain range, and it towered over the other mountain ranges. The cold wind was biting cold, and it whistled loudly. The cold wind was like a knife, causing pain to one's face. If it was a normal person, they wouldn't be able to live here. Only cultivators can withstand such a harsh environment. Bai Luo said, "Let's find someone to inquire about the whereabouts of that mysterious expert. Since there are rumors that he appeared in the Hongjun mountain range, the people here must have heard about it. Perhaps they know where he is." Tang Zheng nodded. "Let's go with your suggestion." Bai Luo looked around. It was desolate and barren, and there wasn't even the slightest bit of vegetation. In such a cold place, no trees could grow. "It's just that I don't know where there are people," Bai Luo said resentfully. Tang Zheng looked up and narrowed his eyes. He pointed in the direction of the main peak and said, "Let's go that way and try our luck." Bai Luo helplessly said, "All right. However, we definitely can't go to the main peak. It's an extremely cold place, and anyone who goes there will freeze to death." Tang Zheng said in surprise, "Oh, is it that powerful?" Bai Luo nodded seriously. "I once heard that a sage realm expert went to the main peak and never came back down." In other words, even a sage realm expert had lost his life on the main peak, so a Mahayana realm cultivator like him shouldn't take the risk. Tang Zheng didn't explain any further and walked towards the main peak with the others. Someone's been here before." Bai Luo found some clues and shouted in pleasant surprise, "Tang Zheng, your luck is too good. You just randomly pointed in a direction, and you guessed it right." Tang Zheng laughed involuntarily. How could he have guessed it blindly? He had truly sensed the aura of humans in this area. "Then let's hurry up and find them," Tang Zheng said. "Yes, you can count on me." Bai Luo's figure flickered, and she turned into a specter, quickly moving through the area. Behind her, the wind and snow danced in the air like snow fairies. They sank into the ground, and the ground immediately lit up, illuminating the area. Chapter 1870. A few shouts came from the ground. The snow spirits that had sunk into the ground flew out and exploded in the air with a few bangs. Bai Luo panicked and hurriedly explained, "Senior, I didn't mean to disturb your cultivation. I just have some questions." Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Several figures drilled out from the ground. Tang Zheng looked at them in surprise. They were as tall as children and only half as tall as an adult. They were true dwarves. Their expressions were unfriendly as they glared at Bai Luo and said, "Where did you come from? You dare trespass into the Hongjun mountain range. Aren't you afraid of death?" Bai Luo looked at them in surprise and cried out, "You're from the Earth Traveler race?" Earth Traveler race. Tang Zheng looked at them in surprise. He had never heard of this race before, but he didn't say anything and only watched in silence. You're quite knowledgeable. You actually know about the Earth Traveler race. The Hongjun mountain range is extremely cold. Normal people can't live here for long periods of time. Only we Earth Traveler race can live underground without fear of the cold," said one of the muscular Earth Traveler race members. Tang Zheng was shocked. This race actually lived underground. It was truly inconceivable. Bai Luo and the others weren't surprised at all. "Senior's words are reasonable. We just came to the Hongjun mountain range to ask for some information. That's why we disturbed you." Humph. The Earth Traveler snorted heavily as a white mist came out of his nostrils. It quickly condensed in the air and turned into an ice crystal. "I hate people like you the most. You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. You came to the Hongjun mountain range and disturbed our cultivation. We don't welcome you. Leave." The Earth Traveler waved his hand impatiently. Bai Luo bit her lips and said respectfully, "Seniors of the Earth Traveler race, we have important matters to attend to. We have no choice but to come here. Please forgive us." The leader of the Earth Traveler race said, "If you want to ask for information, that's fine. Stay and be my wife and I'll tell you." Ha! The other Earth Travelers also laughed. Bai Luo blushed. "Seniors, I'm only looking for information. Please don't make fun of me." "I'm not making fun of you. I'm being sincere. I, Sun Dezhuang, am the most powerful warrior of the Earthen Traveler's younger generation. I'm at the age of marriage, and I'm planning to get married. How would I have the time to joke with you?" Sun Dezhuang's face was solemn as he spoke with certainty. He did not seem to be joking at all. Bai Luo stared at him blankly. She opened her mouth but didn't know what to say. "Dezhuang is right. You're at the age of marrying a wife and having children. You don't have the time to joke around with all of you. There's nothing in this Hongjun mountain range that we, the Earth Traveler race, don't know. You found the right person to ask for information." The other Earth Traveler race chimed in one after another. Bai Luo's face flushed red. She had volunteered herself, but now she was faced with such a difficult problem. She hadn't been able to obtain any information at all. She lowered her head in shame and glanced at Tang Zheng. Seeing that he was unmoved, she became even more anxious. "Tang Zheng has already helped us so much. We can't possibly trouble him for everything. If that's the case, what value do we have? Therefore, I must succeed in this matter." Bai Luo silently thought to herself. She took a deep breath and gathered her courage. "I'm not here to get married, so I can't agree to this condition of yours. If you want something else, I'll do my best to satisfy you." Sun Dezhuang curled his lips and swept his gaze over them. "I don't have any other conditions. If you don't agree, then forget it. Let's go back and cultivate." Sun Dezhuang looked like he was about to return underground. Bai Luo opened her mouth anxiously while the others were dumbfounded. There was nothing they could do. Everyone in the God realm knew that the Earth Traveler race's chief lived underground. He had an eccentric temperament and was naturally fond of fighting. Even if he faced someone much stronger than him, he wasn't afraid at all. If they provoked the Earth Traveler race, especially in the Hongjun mountain range, it wouldn't be a good thing. "Bai Luo!" Several people shouted. Bai Luo was at her wits' end. She reluctantly said, "Wait a moment." Sun Dezhuang stopped and chuckled. "You've thought it through? Let me tell you, I won't treat you badly after marrying you. Moreover, you'll be greatly honored. I'm a warrior of the Earth Traveler race, and everyone admires me. From now on, you can do whatever you want in the Earth Traveler race." Bai Luo's mood fell. It seemed like she was really going to be forced to agree to Sun Dezhuang. But before she could open her mouth, a voice drifted into her ears. "Sun Dezhuang, Miss Bai Luo isn't willing to marry you, so why force her to marry you? Why don't you change your conditions?" Tang Zheng spoke up to help Bai Luo. Sun Dezhuang and his companions immediately locked onto Tang Zheng and angrily said, "This is between me and her. What does it have to do with you? Don't ruin my marriage. A forcibly picked melon won't be sweet. Why do you have to be like this? Who said I'm going to use force? I want her to agree to me willingly. How can the brave warriors of my Earth Traveler race bully others? We all pay attention to using virtue to convince others." Sun Dezhuang said in a serious manner. "Yes, we're all about using virtue to convince others." His companions agreed. This made them doubt their own ears. This was clearly forcing her to marry him. How could she be willing? Did they not even blink when lying? Tang Zheng had never heard such twisted reasoning. He said, "Using virtue to convince others isn't like this." "Nonsense, that's what my father taught me. I'm very smart, so I've firmly remembered it. There's definitely nothing wrong with it. Don't lie to me." Sun Dezhuang put his hands on his hips and stared at him with his large eyes, speaking in all seriousness. Tang Zheng helplessly rolled his eyes. It seemed that there was a generation gap between him and the Earth Traveler race. He simply couldn't communicate with them. Since that was the case, there was no need to waste any more time. He pulled Bai Luo behind him and said, "Sun Dezhuang, I heard that you're the #1 warrior of the Earth Traveler race. How about we have a little competition? If I beat you by some stroke of luck, You'll answer our questions. Ha ha ha. The Earth Traveler race people looked at each other and laughed loudly, as if they had heard the funniest joke in the world. Challenge me? Very well. I promise you that as long as any one of you can beat me, I'll tell you everything I know. Sun Dazhuang patted his thick chest and said fearlessly. You puny people dare to challenge our Earth Traveler race? Don't be fooled by your height. How can you be stronger than us? That's why you're asking to be humiliated. Yes, Dazhuang, show them the power of the Earth Traveler race. This is the Hongjun Mountain Range, the homeland of our Earth Traveler race. How can this group be our match? The Earth Traveler race people were eager to give it a try and weren't afraid at all. Who wants to challenge me? Step forward. Sun Dazhuang rubbed his fists and cracked his knuckles in an aggressive manner. He swept his gaze over the group but couldn't find anyone who was his match. Bai Luo looked worriedly at Tang Zheng. Chapter 1871. I'll do it. Tang Zheng smiled mysteriously as he stepped forward. Bai Luo's eyes shone with excitement. They didn't have absolute confidence in winning, but with Tang Zheng taking action, it would be a piece of cake. Sun Dazhuang raised his eyes. There was a large difference in height between him and Tang Zheng, but his aura was not weak at all. He sized up Tang Zheng from head to toe and said, Who are you? I, Sun Dazhuang, will not exchange blows with a nameless person. Tang Zheng smiled. You can ask me after you win. Sun Dazhuang was enraged. In this Hongjun mountain range, other than me, Sun Dazhuang, you're the first one who dares to be so arrogant. Fine, I'll make an exception and beat you until you're looking for your teeth on the ground. Then I'll make you worship me as your master. As soon as he finished speaking, Sun Dazhuang's fist flew over, the sound of wind and thunder faintly echoing in the air. That fist grew larger and larger until it was the size of a boulder in front of Tang Zheng. Boom! The sound of wind and thunder filled the air. Fall for me! Sun Dazhuang roared, but his fist suddenly stopped, unable to move forward, as if it was blocked by an irresistible force. Sun Dazhuang staggered and almost fell to the ground. The others saw all of this and clearly saw Tang Zheng calmly extend his right hand and lightly press down on that boulder-like fist. The fist's attack came to an abrupt stop. Bai Luo and the others excitedly clenched their fists, looking at Tang Zheng with eyes full of worship. Sun Dazhuang made a sound of surprise. You have some skill, but it's not enough. As soon as he finished speaking, Sun Dazhuang disappeared and drilled back into the ground. Tang Zheng lowered his head and swept his gaze over, but he couldn't find any clues. The other Earth Travelers revealed excited expressions and whispered, Dazhuang is going to use his ultimate move. That's right, this person definitely won't be able to receive it. That's a must. Bai Luo and the others' expressions stiffened, their hearts in turmoil as they began to worry. Tang Zheng was calm and collected, but he was a bit curious as to what kind of ultimate move this Sun Dazhuang could use. After coming to the divine realm, he hadn't seen many people and hadn't seen many divine abilities. He was looking forward to meeting the Earth Traveler tribe. It was his first time meeting a tribe that lived underground. Suddenly, Tang Zheng sensed something and lowered his head to look. A hand appeared at his feet, fiercely grabbing Tang Zheng's ankle and fiercely pulling him down. Half of Tang Zheng's body was dragged into the hard frozen ground, leaving only half of his body exposed. The Earth Traveler's excitement grew. He widened his eyes as if he was waiting for a good show. Of course, Tang Zheng could have broken free, but he didn't do so. Instead, he quietly waited for the coming ultimate move. Ha ha ha, you dare to challenge me, Sun Dazhuang? I'll beat you until your mother can't recognize you. Sun Dazhuang's wild laughter came from underground. Boom! Boom! The frozen earth on the ground moved and turned into a giant hammer. The frozen earth was suffused with cold light as it whistled down. Bang! It smashed heavily onto Tang Zheng's head. With a loud explosion, the giant hammer was torn to pieces. Sun Dazhuang's cry of surprise came from underground. Tang Zheng actually broke his attack again. This was beyond his expectations. However, in the next second, rumbling sounds came from underground. The ground around Tang Zheng rose high, as if waves had appeared on the ground. They surged violently and swept towards Tang Zheng. The frozen earth that was as hard as a boulder could actually move and turn into waves. This made Tang Zheng's eyes light up. The Earth Traveler tribe's divine ability is extraordinary. At the very least, this Earth control technique isn't something an ordinary person can achieve. The frozen Earth waves swept over. Tang Zheng was like a small boat that could be smashed apart at any time. Sun Dazhuang appeared again. He stood on top of the waves and looked down at Tang Zheng. He laughed wildly. "Can you take this ultimate move of mine?" Suddenly, Tang Zheng smiled at Sun Dazhuang, causing Sun Dazhuang's heart to shiver as he had a bad premonition. "Don't scare yourself. He's just deliberately mystifying me. How can I be scared by a smile?" Sun Dazhuang patted his chest and hurriedly comforted himself. All of a sudden, Sun Dazhuang saw Tang Zheng extend his hands and gently press down on the surging waves. The waves in front of him instantly calmed down as if they had turned into a tranquil lake. The ground returned to normal. Immediately afterward, more and more waves calmed down. In an instant, all of the waves disappeared without a trace. The ground returned to normal. Meanwhile, Sun Dazhuang fell down from the waves and stood on the ground. He was only a few meters away from Tang Zheng. He stared blankly at Tang Zheng and shouted in disbelief, "Impossible! Do you also know Earth movement technique?" Tang Zheng's heart stirred. This Earth movement technique was definitely the Earth Traveler tribe's Earth control technique. "Take a guess." Tang Zheng smiled mysteriously. Although the two had only exchanged a few moves, Sun Dazhuang already had a premonition that he wasn't this person's match. With a flash of inspiration, he immediately drilled into the ground. Bang! However, his head slammed heavily into the ground. The ground was as hard as iron, and a large bump appeared on his head. "What's going on?" Sun Dazhuang was shocked. The earth was as soft as water to the Earth Traveler tribe. As long as they wanted to, they could swim freely in the soil. However, at this moment, the earth beneath his feet was as hard as iron. He couldn't drill down at all. The Earth Traveler tribe's divine ability was also ineffective. Sun Dazhuang looked at Tang Zheng in horror and asked, "What did you do?" Tang Zheng lightly moved and got up from the ground. He stood on the ground and approached Sun Dazhuang step by step, saying, "It's just a small trick. You guys are good at controlling the earth. As long as you can break through this point, then your divine ability is nothing to fear." Sun Dazhuang was terrified. He had never heard anyone say that they could break through the earth movement technique so easily. "How did you do it?" Sun Dazhuang asked, his hair standing on end. Tang Zheng smiled mysteriously and didn't answer. The other earth travelers finally came to their senses. Seeing that their companion was in danger, they all rushed over and roared, "Dazhuang, we'll help you." Sun Dazhuang stomped his foot and said, "Back down. I, Sun Dazhuang, will take responsibility for my own actions. I've lost, so why should I need you guys to regain my face? Kill me if you want." After saying that, he raised his neck, showing a fearless posture of waiting to be killed. "You've got some guts," Tang Zheng praised. "Of course, I'm the #1 warrior of the Earth Traveler tribe. How could I let the Earth Traveler's prestige fall?" Sun Dazhuang said proudly. However, his heroic appearance didn't last long. He said with a sullen expression, "It's a pity that I, Sun Dazhuang, am going to die like this before I get married." He looked at Bai Luo with reluctance. Bai Luo couldn't bear to see him like this and said, "Tang Zheng, can you not kill him? He doesn't seem that bad." "Of course I'm not bad. I'm a warrior of the Earth Traveler tribe. I'm a good person." Sun Dazhuang hurriedly expressed his stance. "You care so much about me. As expected, you're someone I, Sun Dazhuang, like." Bai Luo's face turned red and she said angrily, "Don't talk nonsense." "Haha." Tang Zheng laughed loudly. "Sun Dazhuang, I can spare you if you answer Bai Luo's question honestly." Chapter 1872. Sun Dazhuang said shamelessly, "Ask away. There's nothing in the Hongjun mountain range that I, Sun Dazhuang, don't know." Bai Luo curled her lips. "Can you stop bragging?" Sun Dazhuang's face turned red as he defended himself. "I'm telling the truth. How am I bragging?" Bai Luo waved her hand. "All right, I'll believe you for now. There's a very powerful person in the Hongjun mountain range, right? He's very powerful, very powerful." With that, she lowered her voice and whispered, "He's a god race, but he's different from other god races. God race. Sun Dazhuang's expression froze. His eyelids twitched as he blurted out, "How did you know?" Bai Luo looked as if she had expected it. "I was the one who asked you first. Answer my question first." Sun Dazhuang stuttered as he could not help but look at Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng looked at him with a smile, but no matter how he looked at it, he felt that this smile did not have good intentions. He shuddered inwardly. "Sun Dazhuang, didn't you boast that you know everything in the Hongjun mountain range?" Sun Dazhuang's face turned red as he raised his neck and said, "Of course I know. Isn't it that person? He is indeed in the Hongjun mountain range." Bai Luo's eyes lit up as she hurriedly asked, "Then where is he?" Sun Dazhuang pointed at the tallest mountain in the distance and said, "On that mountain." "Humph, speaking of this person, his temper is really bad. Our Earth traveler race went to visit him, but he refused to meet us. Who does he think he is? If it wasn't for Father stopping me, I would have challenged him and let him know the power of the Earth traveler race." Bai Luo stuck out her tongue and made a funny face. She said, "You're bragging. He's so powerful. How could you be his match? You can't even beat Tang Zheng." In other words, Tang Zheng was much worse than that person. Bai Luo only realized the problem after she finished speaking. She looked at Tang Zheng in embarrassment and said, "Sorry, that's not what I meant." Tang Zheng laughed and shook his head. "It's fine." Sun Dazhuang said indignantly, "What you said is the truth. What's there to apologize for? How can he be stronger than that person? Even my father said that he was very powerful." Bai Luo glared fiercely at Sun Dazhuang and pouted, "Shut your mouth. No one thinks you're mute." Sun Dazhuang shrunk his neck and muttered, "You can't even tell me the truth. That's too much of a bully." Bai Luo Quan pretended not to hear and continued to ask, "The mountain peak is so high, where exactly is that person? Moreover, I heard that he is not alone. Who else is with him?" Sun Dazhuang chuckled. "You've asked the right person again. Although I haven't seen him before, I have the right to speak on this issue. He's at the peak of the main peak. That's not an ordinary place. Ordinary people can't climb up at all. If you go, you'll all turn into popsicles. Only our Earth traveler race can go up there. Of course, true experts can also go up like that person." When everyone heard this, they were secretly speechless. Indeed, he's not alone. He's with dozens of experts. I wonder where he found them. Not only are there Mahayana realm experts, but there's also Saint realm experts. That's the highest level below the god race. Sun Dazhuang's eyes lit up with anticipation. "One day, I'll also cultivate to the Saint realm." "You only want to cultivate to the Saint realm?" Tang Jing asked. Sun Dazhuang rolled his eyes. "What do you mean only want to? That's the highest level below the god race. It's the limit of what humans can reach. It's a realm that countless people dream of. Don't you want to cultivate to the god realm?" Tang Jing asked. "Become a god?" Sun Dazhuang's eyes widened as he stared at Tang Zheng as if he was looking at a monster. "She keeps saying that I'm bragging. You're the real braggart. You want to cultivate to the god realm? Admirable. Admirable. Ha ha ha." The other Earth Traveler race members all laughed, thinking that Tang Zheng was overestimating himself. It was a fantasy. Bai Luo and the others had strange expressions, seemingly agreeing with Sun Dazhuang's words. Tang Zheng shook his head inwardly. It seemed that the people of the god realm had a deep-rooted belief that it was impossible for them to become a god. Bai Luo stomped her foot angrily. "You're not allowed to laugh. Sun Dazhuang, aren't you very familiar with the Hongjun mountain range? Then take us to the main peak." If anyone else had made this request, I definitely wouldn't have agreed. But since you're the one who asked, then I won't refuse. Sun Dazhuang patted his chest and said, "I'm the only one who can take you to the main peak. It's a good opportunity to meet that person. My father always told me not to go, but I refused to listen. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." Sun Dazhuang, Bai Luo, and the others hit it off and immediately flew toward the main peak. The cold wind was like a knife, cutting people's cheeks painfully, almost turning them into popsicles. They were all cultivators, but some of them were still shivering from the cold. The Earth Traveler race members didn't feel any discomfort. It was clear that they had long since adapted to this harsh weather. "I'll protect you. Otherwise, you'll all freeze to death before we even reach the top." Sun Dazhuang took out an earthen yellow bead and said, "This is the earth elemental bead. It can block the wind and snow." An earthen yellow light burst forth from the bead and immediately enveloped Bai Luo, turning into a ball of light that blocked the wind and snow outside. Sun Dazhuang also hid inside the ball of light and tried to curry favor. "I'll protect you." However, a figure flashed and Bai Luo pulled Tang Zheng into the ball of light. "Tang Zheng, you come in too." Sun Dazhuang rolled his eyes and glared at Tang Zheng. He said resentfully, "My other brothers can protect him. Just let them protect the others. Aren't you very powerful? Then let's protect one more person. You can't do it, right?" Bai Luo asked deliberately. She was gradually getting a better understanding of Sun Dazhuang's nature. As expected, Sun Dazhuang's eyes widened and he patted his chest. "Why can't I do it? I can definitely do it." Tang Zheng nodded. "Men can't say they can't." Sun Dazhuang's eyes lit up and he praised. "Right, men can't say they can't walk. This saying is too well said." The other Earth travelers also took out their Earth elemental beads to protect the others and block the wind and snow. The main peak looked close, but it was actually quite a distance away. After a long time, they finally reached the foot of the main peak. The wind and snow on the mountain were too strong, and even the Earth elemental beads were unable to block the terrifying wind and snow. As such, they could only land at the foot of the mountain and climb it on foot. Only then could they avoid being blown down from the sky and smashed into meat paste. Sun Dazhuang took the lead and rushed to the front. Behind him were Bai Luo and Tang Zheng, while the others were a step behind. Sun Dazhuang deliberately increased his pace in order to shake off Tang Zheng and have a chance to be alone with Bai Luo. Unfortunately, no matter how fast he walked, he couldn't shake off Tang Zheng. In the end, it was Bai Luo who couldn't keep up with the two of them. Sun Dazhuang was protective of the fairer sex and had no choice but to stop. Tang Zheng took in all of his little tricks, and a smile appeared in the corner of his eyes, but he did not expose him. Boom boom boom. Chapter 1873. The loud sound caused Sun Dazhuang's expression to change as he shouted, "Great avalanche!" Bai Luo and the others had puzzled expressions. They were all Xiaofan. How could they be afraid of an avalanche? Only Tang Zheng narrowed his eyes slightly as he detected something. This definitely wasn't a normal avalanche. Sun Dazhuang stomped his foot and said angrily, "Retreat!" However, the loud sound was already above their heads. They couldn't retreat at all. Boom boom boom. They finally saw the scene of the avalanche. It was white snow that covered the sky. It surged and fell from the sky as though it had the power to destroy the world. But this wasn't the most terrifying part. Bolts of lightning flashed in the white snow, crackling endlessly. Everywhere the lightning passed, everything was torn to pieces. They finally understood what Sun Dazhuang and the others were feeling. They screamed at the top of their lungs, "Run!" Sun Dazhuang grimaced and shook his head. "It's too late. We can only take the risk and try. Everyone gather the earth elemental beads and hope they can hold on for a while." The people of the earth traveler race immediately gathered together, and a few earth elemental pearls rose up slowly. Streaks of earthen yellow light gathered together and transformed into a huge ball of light, protecting everyone. Boom! The white snow and lightning hit the ball of light at almost the same time. Without any effort, the ball of light crumbled into pieces that scattered with the wind. Not good. Their expressions froze as they widened their eyes in despair. If even the earth elemental beads couldn't stop it, then their bodies were even less of a match. To think that I, Sun Dazhuang, will die on this mountain before I get married and have children. It's really a loss. Sun Dazhuang shouted tragically, "Bai Luo, I didn't marry you in this life, but I will definitely marry you in the next life." Bai Luo had been panicking, but when she heard Sun Dazhuang's words, her face turned red and she was very shy. Then her heart darkened. Sun Dazhuang wouldn't have come here originally. All of this was because of her, so she really owed him. At the last moment, she gathered her courage and gritted her teeth. She responded in an almost inaudible voice, "If there really is a next life, I will marry you." Sun Dazhuang heard this and was overjoyed. He laughed loudly and heroically. "Ha ha ha, with your words, I will die a worthy death. See you in the next life. The others also felt the same way as they looked at the rolling avalanche in despair. The avalanche was already right in front of them. Some people subconsciously closed their eyes and tensed up. They were dumbstruck and lost their ability to move. Suddenly, a person stepped out from the crowd and walked forward. Tang Zheng! Bai Luo cried out involuntarily. What are you doing? Tang Zheng turned around and smiled, not saying a word. He wants to block the avalanche. Sun Dezhuang saw through Tang Zheng's thoughts and shouted in disbelief. How is that possible? This is like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. It's impossible. The others nodded in agreement with Sun Dezhuang's words. Tang Zheng turned a deaf ear to him and stomped his foot heavily. The earth shook as if there was a burst of energy gushing out from the ground like a volcanic eruption. The great avalanche happened to be right in front of him, but it was unable to move forward. Instead, it split into two and rolled down the mountain around him. It was as if there was a powerful energy in his body that blocked the avalanche. Even the avalanche could not do anything to him. Pa pa pa! A bolt of snow-white lightning flew toward Tang Zheng in an attempt to devour him. However, just as the lightning was about to strike Tang Zheng, it abruptly stopped and disappeared into thin air. The others were petrified as they watched this scene in disbelief. Many pairs of eyes fell on Tang Zheng's body. No matter how they scratched their heads, they could not figure out how he had done it. A formless energy protected everyone as the avalanche rolled down the mountain around them without them being injured in the slightest. Only the deafening rumbling sound remained between heaven and earth, causing their minds to go blank. Time passed by and the rumbling sound gradually disappeared. However, they still hadn't come to their senses. They stared dumbstruck at Tang Zheng as if they didn't know him at all. Tang Zheng turned around and saw everyone's shocked expressions. He smiled faintly and said, "Let's continue climbing." Whoosh! Sun Dezhuang rushed in front of Tang Zheng like a gust of wind. He looked him up and down as if he wanted to see through him. He asked in a nervous and curious voice, "How did you do it?" Tang Zheng smiled and said, "It's just a small trick. It's not worth mentioning." Sun Dezhuang's face reddened. If that was a small trick, then what was his? Do you have some kind of powerful magic treasure? Sun Dezhuang racked his brains and thought that he had found a reasonable explanation. Tang Zheng nodded. Yes. His hidden profound sword was a holy weapon, so of course it was a powerful magic treasure. However, it had nothing to do with him blocking the avalanche. When Sun Dezhuang heard this, he immediately came to a realization and muttered to himself, "I knew it. You must have some kind of powerful magic treasure to be able to block the avalanche." He did not try to get to the bottom of it. After all, magic treasures were too important to cultivators and would not be easily shown to others. Bai Luo immediately came to Tang Zheng's rescue. She said, "Sun Dezhuang, do you know the difference between you and Tang Zheng now? You didn't lose unjustly at all." Sun Dezhuang pouted angrily, feeling indignant. Suddenly, he had an idea. He said, "We didn't die, so you can marry me now, right? That's what you promised me." Bai Luo remembered the promise she had made in the face of danger, and her face turned red. She said, "I was talking about the next life, not this life." AI, the next life can be brought forward to this life," Sun Dezhuang said shamelessly. How could Bai Luo continue to argue with him? Seeing that Tang Zheng had already started to climb the mountain, she chased after him, saying, "Let's climb the mountain first." Sun Dezhuang resentfully curled his lips. He said, "Then let's climb the mountain." Humph! A good woman is afraid of a pestering man. I don't believe that you won't agree. The group continued to climb the mountain and did not encounter any more danger. However, the air became colder and colder. Many people's teeth chattered, unable to withstand the cold. Tang Zheng glanced at them and waved his hand. A ray of light fell down and protected them. Immediately, it was as warm as spring. Everyone raised their heads in shock and stared at Tang Zheng. He was still as calm as ever. Everyone's hearts trembled as they realized that Tang Zheng was far more powerful and unfathomable than they had thought. Sun Dezhuang also fell silent. What little confidence he had left completely collapsed as he realized that he was not Tang Zheng's opponent. Previously, it was not wrong for him to lose to Tang Zheng. "We're here." Suddenly, Tang Zheng stopped in his tracks and gazed at the main peak. The others all looked over and sucked in a breath of cold air in disbelief. A city. To be more precise, it was a bustling city under construction. Sun Dazhuang said in shock, "How could someone build a city here?" One had to know that the environment here was harsh and not suitable for human survival. Building a city was a thankless task, and it was also extremely difficult. Bai Luo's eyes lit up. Could it be that person who built it? Is it him? Sun Dazhuang gulped in disbelief. No wonder his father was so respectful of someone who could build a city here. Chapter 1874. The main peak had already been razed to the ground, and a group of people were busy building a city. Tang Zheng and the others looked over, as if they wanted to see their target in the crowd. Suddenly, Bai Luo pointed at a person and said, "Carefree Master." "It's really him." The others cried out in confirmation. Tang Zheng frowned. He had never heard of this name before. Who was this person? He still couldn't find his Yuanian clone in the crowd. Taoist Mo. Bai Luo pointed at another person and cried out in alarm. Immediately, cries of surprise rang out as they called out one name after another. Tang Zheng didn't hear a single name, but the others were shocked. It was obvious that these people's identities weren't ordinary. Tang Zheng asked in astonishment, "You know them? Who are they?" Bai Luo and the others looked at Tang Zheng as if they were looking at a monster. Sun Dazhuang couldn't help but ask, "Have you never heard of their names?" Tang Zheng smiled faintly, tacitly agreeing. "Where did you come from? You don't even know these famous people?" Sun Dazhuang said in disbelief. Tang Zheng smiled bitterly. "Forgive me for being ignorant, but I really don't know." Sun Dazhuang sized up Tang Zheng as if he was looking at a monster. He said, "You're amazing. These people aren't ordinary people. They've been famous in the God realm for a long time." "Oh, then why are they here?" Tang Zheng asked curiously. The others looked at each other. Sun Dazhuang curled his lips and said, "I also want to know." Bai Luo said thoughtfully, "Could it be that they've all submitted to that mysterious expert?" Sun Dazhuang rubbed his chin and pondered for a while before saying, "We can't rule out that possibility." Tang Zheng walked towards the city with large strides and said with a smile, "We'll know if we ask." When he got close to the city and saw all these experts, his pupils shrank. These people all had a mysterious seal on them that was forcefully restricting their life. As long as someone willed it, these seals would activate and they would immediately die. Tang Zheng was shocked and muttered to himself, "What a powerful brand. It seems that they were not willing." "Who are you all?" When they approached, the other party immediately berated them aggressively. Bai Luo and the others paled in fright, not knowing what to do. Tang Zheng stood tall and said calmly, "I'm here to look for your leader." Bai Luo and the others looked at Tang Zheng with complicated gazes. This group of people's auras were too powerful. Just a few shouts were enough to make their heartstrings tremble, but Tang Zheng didn't seem to be affected in the slightest. It was truly strange. "Find him?" The other party's expression changed greatly. "What qualifications do you have to find him?" Tang Zheng smiled and said, "You don't need to be qualified to find him." "Arrogant. Do you think we're just decorations? Is he someone you can meet just because you say so?" The group of people's tone was unkind, and they were not prepared to let them pass. Tang Zheng shook his head and sighed. How arrogant. He strolled towards the other party. Bai Luo and the others turned pale with fright and screamed, "Stop, don't go up." It was clear that the path ahead was too dangerous. The other party wouldn't let them pass willingly. They were all famous experts in the divine realm, and there was more than one of them. How could Tang Zheng pass through their human wall? Tang Zheng turned a deaf ear to them and leisurely walked forward. Under everyone's gazes, he met the group of people in front of him. Boom! An earth-shattering power soared into the sky, surging towards Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng stood in the middle of it, as if he had walked into a raging sea. He was like a stabilizing needle, walking forward without being affected in the slightest. This scene caused many people's jaws to drop. How did Tang Zheng do it? Question marks appeared in everyone's minds. Watch me. Another person also used a divine ability. A gale swept up snowflakes, turning them into a snow dragon that roared as it rushed forward. Bang! The snow dragon exploded, turning into snowflakes that fell from the sky, not harming Tang Zheng at all. "Me too. Me too." The others shouted and attacked at the same time. Immediately, earth-shattering sounds rose and fell one after another as countless attacks rained down on Tang Zheng like a torrential storm. Tang Zheng's footsteps did not stop, walking past these attacks. Then, one figure after another cried out in alarm as they were sent flying. Soon, the world quieted down. Everyone's jaws dropped as they watched this scene in disbelief. Tang Zheng walked into the city, completely ignoring the experts who had been defeated by him, as if this was a matter of course and not worth being surprised. Suddenly, he stopped and turned to Bai Luo and the others, saying, "Let's go." The several people seemed to have awoken from a dream as they dragged their heavy steps to Tang Zheng's side. Pairs of eyes stared at him. Sun Dazhuang swallowed his saliva and asked, "How did you do it?" Tang Zheng smiled. "Didn't you all see it?" "What did they see?" They didn't see Tang Zheng make a move at all, but the group of people's attacks were quickly disintegrated and they were sent flying. This overturned their understanding. One had to know that there were Saint Realm experts in this group. They were the strongest existences below the god race. How could they be defeated so miserably? Bai Luo looked at Tang Zheng in a daze and smacked her lips, exclaiming, "I didn't know you were so powerful." Tang Zheng smiled, saying, "I've made a fool of myself." No one laughed. Their faces seemed to be petrified, their expressions frozen. "Who are you?" Suddenly, one of the people who had been defeated by Tang Zheng shouted. Tang Zheng smiled but did not say anything. He did not reveal his identity and walked straight into the depths of the city. This city was very big, but it was empty. Other than those experts, there was no one else. Why is this place so deserted? Bai Luo gradually came back to her senses and looked around, muttering curiously. Tang Zheng's eyes were like lightning as they locked onto the city lord's residence in the center of the city. This city was similar to the other cities he had seen in the god realm. Countless buildings in picturesque disorder surrounded the city lord's residence, and the most important person in this city lived in the city lord's residence. Yuanying's clone. "I'm finally going to meet you." Tang Zheng thought silently, full of anticipation. But he was also a little puzzled. After the group of experts saw him, they did not treat him as Yuanying's clone. This did not seem to make sense. After all, when that god race expert went to the mortal realm and saw Tang Zheng, he treated him as Yuanying's clone. In other words, Yuanying's clone appeared in Tang Zheng's appearance. Then, these experts couldn't have seen Tang Zheng's true appearance and still be indifferent. So, there must be a secret behind this. Let's go to the city lord's residence. Tang Zheng went straight to his destination. The others looked at each other anxiously, but they could not voice their opinions. They could only follow his footsteps and arrive at the city lord's residence. Creak. When they arrived at the city lord's residence, the door opened with a creak, as if the person inside had been waiting for them for a long time. Tang Zheng's expression was normal, but the others' expressions changed greatly. Tang Zheng had caused such a big commotion. How would that mysterious expert deal with him? Chapter 1875. This was an unfamiliar face. He stood behind the gates of the city lord's manor, looking at the newcomers with a smile that wasn't a smile. Tang Zheng and the others also stared at him. This person's aura was very subtle. He was standing right in front of them, but he seemed to be far away. If they closed their eyes, Sun Dazhuang and the others wouldn't be able to sense his existence at all. He was like a wisp of air. Without a doubt, this person was an expert. As for whether or not he was the legendary mysterious expert, they couldn't be sure. Why do I feel the urge to kowtow to him when I stand in front of him? Bai Luo asked guiltily. The others felt the same and nodded in agreement. Sun Dazhuang also nodded resentfully. Be careful. We came here directly to cause trouble, so he definitely won't have a good attitude. Several people felt bitter in their hearts as they looked at Tang Zheng. He was the one who had attacked, so they didn't know what he would do when faced with this person. Unexpectedly, Tang Zheng's expression was calm as he said, "We finally meet." "Yes, you're finally here," the other person replied lightly, as if he wasn't surprised by Tang Zheng's words. The others looked left and right, dumbfounded. What was going on? Tang Zheng knew very well that the person in front of him was an unfamiliar face, but it was definitely his Yuanying clone. Yuanying had come from him, so he naturally wouldn't be mistaken. Even if he changed his appearance, he would still be able to recognize him. Tang Zheng suddenly understood. No wonder the experts outside didn't recognize him. It turned out that Yuan Ying's clone had a different appearance. Back then, he had only just arrived in the God realm, so he appeared with Tang Zheng's appearance. Later on, for some reason, he changed this. I'm very surprised to see you. You came much earlier than I expected, Yuan Ying's clone said. He had used the power of the heavenly Tao to become a god. Tang Zheng didn't have the power of the heavenly Tao to borrow, so Yuan Ying's clone couldn't figure out how he had become a god. Thus, he was filled with curiosity, which was why he showed himself. Tang Zheng understood the subtext of his words and said, "You have your chance and I have mine. However, what you did was beyond my expectations." Yuan Ying's doppelganger laughed and pointed at the city outside, saying, "Didn't I tell you that I wanted to come take a look and show them my power? I'm doing that." "You're amazing, but you almost got me into trouble." Tang Zheng smiled bitterly. Yuan Ying's doppelganger's heart trembled, and he let out a long sigh. "Sigh, I also thought of this later, which is why I became like this. I didn't expect that I would still bring you trouble." Changing the topic, Yuan Ying's doppelganger's gaze landed on Sun Dezhuang and the others. He smiled and said, "You're not bad yourself. You actually walked together with the earthen traveler." Hearing this, Sun Dezhuang immediately straightened his back. However, in front of Yuan Ying's doppelganger, he was still too short, and his imposing manner was completely lacking. The earthen traveler is not bad, but compared to the talents I've gathered, they're too lacking. Yuan Ying's doppelganger's next words immediately dealt a heavy blow to Sun Dezhuang. He raised his head in defiance and said, "What did you say?" "This is the truth. Even if the earthen traveler's chief, your father, were here, I would say the same thing. He wouldn't be able to refute me." Yuan Ying's doppelganger played down Sun Dezhuang's identity. Whether it was Tang Zheng, Bai Luo, or the others, they were all shocked. Sun Dezhuang's background was so great. He was actually the son of the earthen traveler's chief. Sun Dezhuang glared. "You can insult me, but you're not allowed to insult the earthen traveler. If you speak rudely again, believe it or not, I'll beat you up." Sun Dezhuang puffed up his cheeks in an aggressive manner, seemingly unafraid of Yuan Ying's doppelganger. His clansmen had long since been scared out of their wits. They hurriedly pulled Sun Dezhuang back and said, "Calm down, calm down." Everyone knew that Sun Dezhuang was no match for him. Moreover, this person wasn't lying. After all, those people outside were all elites who had been famous for a long time, and had all been recruited by him. Compared to them, the Earth Traveler tribe indeed paled in comparison. Tang Zheng patted Sun Dezhuang's shoulder, indicating for him to calm down. Sun Dezhuang glanced at Tang Zheng and resentfully withdrew his aura. He also knew that he wasn't a match, but he couldn't control his temper. On the other hand, Bai Luo's eyes lit up as she looked deeply at Sun Dezhuang. "Since you and I have met, why don't we find a place to talk?" Tang Zheng suggested. However, Yuan Ying's doppelganger shook his head and refused. "I know what you're thinking. Although we have a deep relationship, I'll take responsibility for what I do. It's useless for you to persuade me. Moreover, with your temperament, since you've come this far, there's no turning back. You'll do the same thing as me." Tang Zheng raised his eyebrows and unknowingly fell into deep thought. Yuan Ying's doppelganger truly understood him. He was doing what Yuan Ying's doppelganger was doing, fighting against the god race. It was just that the two of them had chosen different paths and methods. Yuan Ying's doppelganger saw that Tang Zheng was silent and knew that he understood his words. His competitive spirit rose and he said, "Actually, I know that you're quite dissatisfied with what I've done. Let me tell you, I'm also dissatisfied with what you've done. Since we can't see eye to eye, why don't we make an agreement?" "What agreement?" Tang Zheng asked curiously. "We'll use our own methods and see whose method works in the end. Whoever obtains the final victory will be considered to have defeated the other party, and the other party will unconditionally submit. From then on, there will be no disloyalty." Yuan Ying's doppelganger's eyes flashed with anticipation and madness. Tang Zheng's heart trembled. He and Yuan Ying's doppelganger were ultimately one body, and perhaps they would become one again in the future. But who would be in charge? After all, Both of them had already cultivated to godhood, and neither of them would submit to the other. Both of them wanted to be in charge. Now that Yuan Ying's doppelganger had proposed this agreement, it was a competition. Whoever won would be in charge and the other party would submit. You don't dare? Yuan Ying's doppelganger goaded him. This was his only way to replace him. Moreover, he had already done a lot of preparatory work. He was confident that he would win. Although Bai Luo and the others didn't understand the specific meaning of the agreement, they understood that this person was unfathomable. There was absolutely no hope of winning if they competed with him. In their eyes, this was the truth. Thus Bai Luo hurriedly advised, Tang Zheng, think twice before you act. Although Sun Dazhuang dared to talk back to Yuan Ying's doppelganger, he wasn't stupid. He earnestly advised, Bai Luo is right. There's no need to compete with him. Many pairs of eyes stared at Tang Zheng, all hinting at him not to do anything stupid. Tang Zheng smiled and said, I appreciate your good intentions, but I have no choice but to compete this time. All right, I'll agree with you. Let's see who wins in the end. Yuan Ying's doppelganger's eyes lit up and he laughed wildly. Ha ha ha, good. I know you're a man of your word. Then let's wait and see the results. I'm looking forward to it. I'm also looking forward to it. Tang Zheng originally wanted to share the matter of the power of faith with Yuan Ying's doppelganger, but since they were competing, there was no need for that. Moreover, Yuan Ying's doppelganger had his own beliefs and choices. Even if he said it, the other party might not believe him. Then forgive me for not seeing you off, Yuan Ying's doppelganger said. I still have many things to do. Tang Zheng nodded and turned to leave. Sun Dazhuang hurriedly chased after him, but then stopped. He looked at Bai Luo standing in place, feeling troubled. Chapter 1876. Bai Luo stood in place, stuck between a rock and a hard place. She had originally come for Yuan Ying's clone, but now that Tang Zheng and Yuan Ying's clone were on bad terms, she didn't know what to do. Sun Dazhuang's attention was on Bai Luo. Seeing her troubled expression, he asked, Bai Luo, aren't you going to leave? Bai Luo hesitated. I don't know. Tang Zheng also stopped and turned his head, just in time to meet Bai Luo's gaze. Panic flashed through Bai Luo's eyes. She didn't know what to do. Tang Zheng smiled. I'll recommend a few people to you. They all worship you, so they're here to join you. Yuan Ying's clone was taken aback for a moment, then laughed loudly. Haha, good. Don't worry, I'll definitely put you to good use here. Everyone was overwhelmed with emotions. This person's subordinates were all experts who had been famous for a long time. Just the thought of being able to fight alongside them made their blood boil. Thus, apart from Bai Luo, everyone else nodded excitedly. Yuan Ying's clone smiled in satisfaction. These people's strength was mediocre and couldn't enter his eyes, but he still agreed. That was because Tang Zheng's words were effective. These people were with Tang Zheng, but they were here to join him. Didn't this mean that Yuan Ying's clone was superior to Tang Zheng? Thus, he naturally agreed happily. Tang Zheng obviously knew what Yuan Ying's clone was thinking, but he didn't mind. He smiled and turned to leave. Wait! Bai Luo suddenly called out. Tang Zheng stopped in surprise, and Yuan Ying's clone was no exception. He frowned slightly. Wasn't she here to join me? Why did she call out to Tang Zheng? Tang Zheng looked at Bai Luo in confusion. Is there something else? Can I go with you? Bai Luo hesitated, as if she had to muster up a lot of courage to ask. Tang Zheng was stunned. He wasn't the only one. Everyone else also looked at Bai Luo in shock. Yuan Ying's doppelganger frowned. How could he not understand what was going on? This person, who had originally sought refuge with him, had chosen Tang Zheng in the end. Wasn't this a blatant slap to his face? The joy in his heart vanished without a trace. Bai Luo's companions found this inconceivable and hurriedly advised. Bai Luo, what are you saying? Don't talk nonsense at this time. That's right. Isn't this what you've been dreaming of? Now that your dream has come true, stop fooling around. They were worried that Yuan Ying's doppelganger would blame her. Bai Luo was a reasonable person and knew that they were doing this for her own good. But she couldn't get over the hurdle in her heart, so she said resentfully, I'm sorry, I want to go with Tang Zheng now. Maybe my previous thoughts were too simple and one-sided. Bai Luo didn't know why she suddenly changed her mind. But these were her truest thoughts, and she had only spoken the truth. She was a very simple person. If she had something on her mind, she would say it directly. Her companions were dumbfounded and didn't know how to persuade her. They said disappointedly, "You'll regret this." In their hearts, although Tang Zhang had shown some outstanding qualities, how could he be compared to Yuan Ying's doppelganger? Thus, Bai Luo's decision was naturally wrong. Tang Zhang hadn't expected this either, but since Bai Luo had made her decision, he wouldn't refuse her. "Okay, then come with me." Tang Zhang glanced at Yuan Ying's doppelganger. The other party's expression was unfriendly, so Tang Zhang ignored him and walked out. Bai Luo gathered her courage and quickly followed Tang Zhang's footsteps. Sun Dazhuang came back to his senses and looked at Bai Luo's back. His eyes lit up as he praised, "As expected of the woman I like. So domineering and flavorful." After saying this, he snuck a glance at Yuan Ying's doppelganger and discovered that he was like a volcano about to erupt. He hurriedly fled and chased after Bai Luo with his companions. The group walked out of the city and walked down the mountain under the gazes of the experts. Bai Luo chattered non-stop with Bai Luo. Bai Luo's cheeks were red from his praise, and she didn't know how to respond. She glanced at Tang Zheng's back and hastened her footsteps. She walked side by side with him and asked nervously, "What should I do next?" Tang Zheng smiled. "We'll see. There's bound to be something for you to do." Bai Luo made an O sound and said, "Did we offend that person?" Tang Zheng hesitated for a moment before saying, "To be more precise, they're competitors with him. Do you still remember the agreement I made with him?" Bai Luo nodded blankly. She didn't know what this had to do with anything. Sun Dazhuang looked suspiciously at Tang Zheng and asked, "What agreement did you make with him?" The two were acting so mysteriously. The others were all confused and didn't know the contents of the agreement. Tang Zheng smiled mysteriously and kept them in suspense. He said mischievously, "If you want to know, then take me to see your father." Sun Dazhuang was clearly startled. His brain couldn't wrap itself around this and asked blankly, "Why are you looking for him?" "I want to have a heart-to-heart talk with him." Tang Zheng smiled mysteriously. Sun Dazhuang looked suspiciously at him. What's there to have a heart-to-heart talk with an old man like him? However, no matter how aggressively he looked at Tang Zheng, it was to no avail. Tang Zheng's mouth was too tight. Sun Dazhuang couldn't get any useful information out of him at all. He said helplessly, "All right, I'll take you to see him. I want to see what you two have to talk about." At the same time, Sun Dazhuang's interest in Tang Zheng increased greatly. He wanted to get to the bottom of this and figure out what he wanted to do. "Bai Luo, I'll take you to see the world of our Earth Traveler race. It'll definitely broaden your horizons." Sun Dazhuang changed the topic and locked onto Bai Luo with full force. Bai Luo said longingly, "Is that so? Then I'll definitely enjoy it." The group descended the main peak and didn't encounter any more danger. Under the guidance of the Earth Traveler race, the group arrived at a secluded place. The ground was covered in white snow. It was unknown how much it had covered. Sun Dazhuang shot a divine ability into the ground. Crack! As if something had activated, the ground trembled. A large door slowly opened on the ground, revealing a flight of stairs. The stairs were too long and extended to unknown ends. Sun Dazhuang and his companions took the lead and walked down the stairs step by step. "Let's go," Sun Dazhuang urged. Tang Zheng said to Bai Luo, "Let's go and see the Earth Traveler race. Not everyone has this kind of lucky opportunity." Bai Luo smiled with a complicated expression as she followed Tang Zheng's footsteps. One in front, one behind, they walked down the stairs. Creak! Behind them, the door closed. Their vision darkened, then lit up again. Bai Luo's eyes widened as she looked around. She saw gems embedded in the walls, emitting a gentle light and illuminating the path ahead. A moment later, they reached the end of the stairs and their vision opened up. Tang Zheng didn't find this strange and only stared ahead. Bai Luo couldn't hide the shock on her face. She looked around and couldn't take her eyes off everything. This underground world was completely different from what they had imagined. This world was colorful, and there were gems embedded in the walls and ceiling. She really didn't know where they had found so many gems. Just how much wealth was this? Sun Dazhuang's group attracted countless gazes after they appeared. They all bowed to Sun Dazhuang, and Sun Dazhuang also returned their greetings. This was completely different from before. It was a different side of him. Bai Luo watched with great interest, and her eyes couldn't help but light up. Sun Dazhuang had always vowed that he would marry no one but her. She was originally disgusted. However, she gradually understood Sun Dazhuang and found that he was very loyal. She didn't hate him as much. Sun Dazhuang's image in her heart became more vivid. Tang Zheng and Bai Luo received countless gazes because it had been many years since an outsider had come here. Tang Zheng welcomed everyone's gazes. His eyes were like the sun in spring, making people feel as if they were bathing in the spring breeze. It was as if they could temporarily forget the world of ice and snow outside. Chapter 1877. A group of people walked over and Sun Dazhuang hurriedly went up to greet them, shouting, "Father, look who I've brought you." The leader of the group was an old man with a white beard, but his muscles were strong as if they were filled with explosive power. The wrinkles on his face also seemed to contain power. In short, this old man didn't look old at all. He was the chief of the Earth Traveler race, Sun Dazhuang's father, Sun Jiugong. He looked up and sized up Tang Zheng and Bai Luo. His gaze swept past Bai Luo and settled on Tang Zheng, a strange look flashing through his eyes. He couldn't see through Tang Zheng. He already knew that he was a saint, but he couldn't see through a person. It was clear how serious this was. This old man has poor eyesight and has been cooped up here for many years. I don't know the world and experts of the outside world. May I know who you two are? Sun Jiugong said after some consideration. Sun Dazhuang hurriedly introduced, "This is Tang Zheng, he's very powerful. This is Bai Luo my." Bai Luo anxiously glared at him. Sun Dazhuang shrunk his neck and chuckled, whispering into his father's ear. Sun Jiugong's eyes flashed with surprise, and his gaze toward Bai Luo also changed. There seemed to be more kindness and friendliness. Bai Luo anxiously stomped her foot. Just what did Sun Dazhuang say? Sun Dazhuang chuckled, ignoring Bai Luo's threatening gaze. Sun Jiugong said loudly, "Honored guests have come from afar, so please stay here first. My son will show you the splendor of our underground world." Tang Zheng nodded, "Guests will follow the host's wishes. Then we'll follow Chief Sun's arrangements." He was neither servile nor overbearing, neither too fast nor too slow. His temperament was subduing, causing others to look at him in a new light. "Then come with me, I'll show you our world. This is the only place. There's no such thing outside." Sun Dazhuang said as if he was presenting a treasure. After the few of them left, everyone immediately started talking at once. "Chief, who are these two people? Why did you let them stay? No outsiders have ever come to our world. Isn't this too much of a joke?" Sun Jiugong said with a smile, "That's not right. Dazhuang has taken a fancy to that girl." Ha! Everyone was shocked and congratulated him one after another. "Congratulations, clan leader. Dazhuang has finally brought back a wife. The Earth Traveler tribe has a successor." Sun Jiugong stroked his beard. He had a son at an old age, but his son's marriage was still a worry for him. This time, he was filial and brought back a wife from outside. Sun Jiugong laughed out loud. "That girl can stay, but what about the other one? That's a man." "That's right. He's an outsider. We can't let him stay." Sun Jiugong's smile faded as he solemnly said, "Don't you see that this person's background is very big? How powerful can his background be? We, the Earth Traveler race, are content with our territory. Even if the God race comes, we won't lower ourselves. With such a ferocious person on the main peak, we won't provoke him. He didn't provoke us either, so what do we have to be afraid of?" Sun Jiugong nodded and said earnestly, "You are right, but I think this person is not ordinary, so I want to see what his purpose is." Everyone felt apprehensive and asked, "Could he be coveting our Earth Traveler race's treasures?" Everyone knows that our Earth Traveler race has many treasures. Who knows how many people covet them? Sun Jiugong didn't comment and said, "Let's see first. Since Dazhuang met them, he must know a bit about them. Otherwise, he wouldn't have brought them back so rashly." The patriarch made the final decision. Even if everyone had objections, they could only swallow them back into their stomachs. Sun Dezhuang was forcibly called back by his father, even though he always wanted to stay by Luo's side. "Father, I'm with Bai Luo right now. Why did you call me back?" Sun Dezhuang asked in dissatisfaction. Sun Jiugong said seriously, "I have business with you. It won't be too late for you to go to the romance later." Sun Dezhuang's eyes lit up as he preemptively asked, "Do you want to know about Tang Zheng's background?" "Haha, my son knows me best," Sun Dezhuang said with a matter-of-fact expression. "No one knows a father better than a son. How could I not know? I've been waiting for you to ask." "Stinking brat." Sun Jiugong comforted him and glared at him with a smile. Sun Dezhuang narrated every detail of his encounter with Tang Zheng in detail. He emphasized his encounter with the person on the main peak and didn't leave out a single detail. Sun Dezhuang analyzed, "Tang Zheng's origins are too mysterious. He definitely isn't simple. Since he wanted to come to the Earth Traveler race, I brought him here. I have a feeling that he has a purpose for coming here. Perhaps it's not a bad thing for our Earth Traveler race." "Father, you didn't see how he faced the person on the main peak. He wasn't afraid at all. Moreover, the two of them had an agreement. They seemed to be evenly matched competitors." "Evenly matched?" Sun Jiugong's eyelids twitched fiercely. "That person is in the God race realm. Tang Zheng is evenly matched with him. This is too inconceivable." "Yes, I think so too." Sun Dezhuang nodded heavily and said doubtfully, "But I had this feeling at the time. He seemed to know that person very well and wasn't afraid of him at all. Only if he was strong enough would he not be afraid of that person." Sun Jiugong looked pensive. "Dezhuang, your information is very important and your analysis is very reasonable. You finally know how to use your brain and not blindly act recklessly." Sun Dezhuang's face turned red as he argued, "How can I only act recklessly? I've always known how to use my brain. No matter how strong this person is, he can't be underestimated. Since he's come, I naturally can't keep dragging this out. I'll observe him for a few days and then probe his intentions." Tang Zheng and Bai Luo had been in the underground world for several days. Tang Zheng was quite happy and content as he admired the local customs of the underground world. Because the Earth Traveler race was generally short, their architectural style and other unusual items were a size smaller. However, their items were all very exquisite. The Earth Traveler race was nimble and dexterous. Although they were all big and burly, and even the women were no exception, they were very clever. Many of the items they made were breathtaking. Of course, there was another point that made Tang Zheng's eyes light up. The Earth Traveler race had many treasures. Whether it was a normal person or a prominent person, their houses were decorated with many gems. After the initial novelty passed, Bai Luo became sullen. Sun Dezhuang stayed close to her almost every day, which made her very angry. However, she was not afraid of being beaten or scolded. He was like a dog skin plaster that she could not do anything about. Tang Zheng looked on with a smile. A good girl was afraid of being pestered. Sun Dezhuang seemed to have set his eyes on her. In time, he might really be able to get Bai Luo. At that time, Bai Luo had resolutely chosen to leave with Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng was grateful and decided to help her. Her cultivation was too low, so Tang Zheng decided to teach her the heavenly god arts and build a divine bridge. Bai Luo was confused, but after hearing Tang Zheng teach her the heavenly god arts, she immediately realized how extraordinary this ability was. She asked in astonishment, "What kind of ability is this?" "Heavenly god arts." Bai Luo was confused. Clearly, she had never heard of the heavenly god arts at her level. Chapter 1878. Sun Jiugong was in a daze, his expression fluctuating as he muttered to himself, "Heavenly god technique, he actually knows about the heavenly god technique." "Who is it?" Bai Luo turned pale with fright when she heard the voice outside. Bang! With a sweep of Bai Luo's palm, the door opened, revealing Sun Jiugong to the two of them. Tang Zheng was unperturbed. He had long since noticed Sun Jiugong standing outside. As for him teaching Bai Luo the heavenly god technique, he did not hide it from him and instead deliberately told him. Now it seemed that Sun Jiugong really did know about the heavenly god technique. Could it be that he also wanted to cultivate to become a god like the Fengdu Necropolis Lord? So it's you, clan leader Sunday. Bai Luo was a little embarrassed and bowed slightly. Tang Zheng only nodded slightly and did not say a word. Sun Jiugong's face turned red. He was caught eavesdropping and hurriedly explained, I just arrived, I didn't mean to eavesdrop. Tang Zheng waved his hand and said enigmatically, It's fine, it's not a secret. I didn't mean to hide it from clan leader Sunday. Hearing this, Sun Jiugong let out a sigh of relief, but he couldn't help but be curious and asked, This isn't a secret? Back then, a peerless genius appeared in the god realm, but unfortunately he fell. Although not many people know about it, there are still people who know about it. I'm sure clan leader Sun is one of them, right? Tang Jing asked. Sun Jiugong hesitated for a moment, then nodded and admitted, Yes, I was fortunate enough to meet him back then, but I didn't receive his true teachings. Later on, the heavenly god technique was lost. I went through many twists and turns to ask around, but I couldn't find any clues. Where did you get it from? It's natural for clan leader Sun to suspect the authenticity of the heavenly god technique. As for its origin, I can't say too much. As for its authenticity, I'll pass it to you and you'll know. Tang Zheng was natural and unrestrained, not intending to hide the heavenly god technique. This greatly shocked Sun Jiugong. The heavenly god technique was so important, yet Tang Zheng wanted to pass it to him. This was too generous. Sun Jiugong did not know what to do and said, The art of the heavenly god is too important, how can it be passed on so easily? Tang Zheng smiled nonchalantly and said, Perhaps, that person thought that the heavenly god arts were too important, so he didn't spread it out in time, causing a bright pearl to be covered in dust. I, Tang Zheng, would never do such a thing. What's more, if no one cultivates it, no matter how powerful the heavenly god technique is, it's useless. Sun Jiugong was deeply moved as he was convinced by Tang Zheng's words. Bai Luo had never heard of the heavenly god technique, so she thought it was an ordinary divine ability. Only after hearing their conversation did she realize the value of the heavenly god technique. Tang Zheng, the heavenly god technique is so important. Are you really going to teach it to me? Bai Luo asked doubtfully. For cultivators, any kind of supernatural power was extremely precious. Most people would not easily pass it on to outsiders because it was the key to their own victory. However, Tang Zheng did not hide anything at all, which greatly subverted their understanding. Tang Zheng handed over the jade slips he had prepared beforehand to the two, saying, The heavenly god technique is in these jade slips. The heavenly god technique is a method to build a divine bridge and reach the deity realm. The two received the jade slips and impatiently immersed themselves in it. They were immediately shocked by the heavenly god technique's miraculous effects and were petrified on the spot. After a while, the two seemed to have woken up from a dream and looked at Tang Zheng with tears of gratitude. Sun Jiugong's tears flowed freely, saying, Hearing the Tao in the morning, dying in the evening can be content. Now that I have the fate to see the heavenly god technique, I can die without regrets. Tang Zheng smiled. Just looking at it isn't enough. You still have to cultivate it. Sun Jiugong's expression dimmed, saying, The heavenly god technique is indeed miraculous, but cultivating it requires the power of faith. Otherwise, it won't be able to build a divine bridge and raise one's cultivation. Although the divine world is big, the power of faith is unique to the divine race. We don't have any power of faith, so there's no way to cultivate the heavenly god technique. Sun Jiugong couldn't hide his disappointment. Bai Luo's expression stiffened and her head drooped. Tang Zheng laughed loudly. Haha, what's so difficult about the power of faith? With a tap of his finger, two streams of energy shot out and entered the two's bodies. Everything happened so quickly that Bai Luo didn't even have time to react. Sun Jiugong's thick eyebrows rose, but it was too late for him to resist. He could only watch as the two streams of energy entered his body. If Tang Zheng was an enemy, he would definitely have died on the spot. Sun Jiugong was shocked, wondering just how high Tang Zheng's cultivation had to be able to do this. Bai Luo anxiously asked, What is this thing? She discovered that there was an extra stream of energy in her body, but it didn't harm her, so she couldn't help but be curious. The power of faith. Tang Zheng casually said these 4 words. Sun Jiugong and Bai Luo cried out in unison, Power of faith? Tang Zheng said with a smile, This power of faith is enough for you to cultivate for a while and raise your cultivation. In the future, when you've used it all up, I'll give you more. The way the two looked at Tang Zheng changed again and again, as if they didn't recognize him. Was power of faith so easy to obtain? Why did Tang Zheng's tone sound like it was easy to obtain? This completely overturned their understanding of the world. How do you have so much power of faith? Sun Jiugong couldn't help but ask. Tang Zheng smiled mysteriously. You only need to know that you don't need to worry about power of faith and can focus on cultivating the heavenly god arts. Not only can you cultivate the heavenly god arts, but everyone in the Earth Traveler tribe can cultivate the heavenly god arts. Then they all have power of faith? Sun Jiugong blurted out. Tang Zheng nodded. Sun Jiugong felt a little dizzy. The world was changing too quickly. Was power of faith a cabbage? It could be obtained so easily? In this god realm, I am the only one who can provide you with so much power of faith. Tang Zheng added. Sun Jiugong nodded in a daze. Suddenly, he had a flash of inspiration and asked, could you be a member of the god race? God race? Tang Zheng was stunned and burst into laughter. But it was no wonder Sun Jiugong misunderstood. After all, power of faith was exclusive to the god race. If one wasn't a member of the god race, it was impossible to have so much power of faith. And you're not an ordinary member of the god race. You must have an extraordinary position in the god race to have so much power of faith. Sun Jiugong muttered to himself. Then do you think I look like a member of the god race? Tang Zheng asked mischievously. Sun Jiugong looked at Tang Zheng in a daze and shook his head firmly. No, the god race is the enemy of my Earth Traveler tribe. They are arrogant and look down on the Earth Traveler tribe. They don't even bother to talk to us. They would never do something like you. Tang Zheng raised his brows and looked at Sun Jiugong from head to toe. He was very surprised. Sun Jiugong actually dared to say that the Earth Traveler tribe was the god race's enemy. Tang Zheng had been in the divine realm for so long. Other than the people in the 9 nether underworlds who dared to say something like this, he had never seen anyone else who dared to say something like this. He couldn't help but ask curiously, is there a grudge between the Earth Traveler tribe and the god race? Sun Jiugong nodded heavily. Of course, this grudge has lasted for countless years. Unfortunately, we are too weak to take revenge. Chapter 1879. Tang Zheng didn't expect the god race to have a grudge with the Earth Traveler race, but this was good news for him. What is the grudge between the god race and the Earth Traveler race? Can Patriarch Sun tell me in detail? Tang Zheng asked curiously. Sun Jiugong looked deeply at Tang Zheng and said, there's no harm in telling you. The Earth Traveler race is one of the earliest races in the god realm. When the world was created, 2 races were born in the god realm, the god race and the Earth Traveler race. Tang Zheng was dumbfounded. The Earth Traveler race had such a long history, and they were a race that was born when the god realm was created. Sun Jiugong looked at Tang Zheng and Bai Luo's expressions, and it wasn't hard to guess what they were thinking. He smiled bitterly and said, the god race's cultivation talent is amazing, far surpassing our Earth Traveler race. Over time, the Earth Traveler race was left far behind. The god race was high and mighty, and considered themselves the masters of the god realm. Moreover, they started countless wars with us, and finally forced us to the Hongjun mountain range, a cold and barren place, wanting us to fend for ourselves. How ruthless! We're both races born in the god realm, and we're like brothers. Why would the god race do such a thing? Bai Luo said indignantly. Sun Jiugong said self-deprecatingly, the god race didn't treat us like brothers. They thought that we were born small and short, a disgrace to the god realm, so they always wanted to destroy us. In the end, they found that they couldn't, so they forced us to the Hongjun mountain range, expecting us to die in such a harsh environment. It's a pity that we, the Earth Traveler race, have struggled to survive. Amazing! Tang Zheng praised sincerely. He knew how difficult it was to achieve all this, and how much effort and sacrifice they had to put in. Immediately, he felt deep respect for the Earth Traveler race. Almost no outsiders know about this part of history, and only our Earth Traveler race knows about it. After all, the god race treated us like this, so we naturally wouldn't flatter ourselves and take the initiative to get involved with them, Sun Jiugong said bitterly. The Earth Traveler race is very noble. There's no need to get involved with the god race, because that would be lowering our status, Tang Zheng said. Sun Jiugong was stunned for a moment before he burst out laughing. Ha ha ha, well said. We, the Earth Traveler race, are not on the same side as the Celestial race. Of course we don't want to have anything to do with them. However, if the God race listens to you, they will definitely grind your bones to dust and scatter your soul. Tang Zheng chuckled and said, if I don't say that, they'll do the same to me. That's true. After all, you have the heavenly God technique and the power of faith. Sun Jiugong said meaningfully. The enmity between the Earth Traveler race and the God race has lasted for so many years. It's time to put an end to it. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, Tang Zheng said directly. We didn't have the strength before, but now that we have your heavenly God technique and faith power, we have to end this grudge with the gods. Sun Jiugong's eyes burned with fighting spirit. But who are you? Why do you have the heavenly God's secret art and the power of faith? I can't see through you. You aren't of the God race, so how did you do all this? Sun Jiugong asked doubtfully. He racked his brains but couldn't think of an answer. Tang Zheng hesitated and said, allow me to keep you in suspense for now. In the future you will naturally find out. He came from the human world. If his identity was exposed, would it spread to the ears of the God race? Now that two gods had come to the human world, how much would the God race's hostility toward the human world increase? He didn't need to think to guess one thing. For the safety of the human world, he had to hide his identity. Sun Jiugong stared at Tang Zheng with burning eyes as if he was weighing the pros and cons. In the end he nodded and said, all right, I believe you. I look forward to the day when I find out the answer. That day will come, Tang Zheng said with certainty. Patriarch's son, since the enmity between the Earth Traveler race and the God race goes back so long, you must know a lot about the God race, right? Of course. Only by knowing ourselves and our enemy can we survive. Moreover, the one who knows ourselves best is our enemy. We have been the God race's enemy for countless years and have long since seen through them. Sun Jiugong patted his chest and said matter-of-factly. Tang Zheng was waiting for these words. During this period of time, he had been thinking of a way to deal with the God race. Whether it was the plan he and Hades' Lord came up with together or him passing the heavenly God art to the Earth Traveler race, these were all part of the plan. However, these were not enough to defeat the God race. The God race's foundation was too deep. As long as they had an endless supply of power of faith, even if they failed, they would have a chance to rise again. He only had one chance to fight the God race. One chance to determine victory and defeat. Moreover, the God race would never be able to rise again. What did the God race rely on to survive? The power of faith. This was the source of their power. Only by cutting off the source of their power of faith could they defeat the God race from their foundation. Tang Zheng had thought of this plan, but he hadn't put it into practice because he lacked crucial information. The appearance of the Earth Traveler race solved this problem. This was a pleasant surprise. Sun Jiugong heard something and asked curiously, could it be that you want to know some information about the God race? Of course, Tang Zheng said with a smile. I want to know which world the God race's power of faith comes from. Which world does the power of faith come from? Sun Jiugong looked at Tang Zheng in astonishment and said, you actually want to know this? Is there a problem? No problem. I'm just curious. What is your goal in wanting to know this? Sun Jiugong asked. To cut off the source of the God race's power of faith. Tang Zheng said calmly, but these words were like a clap of thunder. Bai Luo couldn't help but cry out in shock as she looked at Tang Zheng like he was a monster. Sun Jiugong couldn't hide his shock and asked, you actually have this idea? I advise you to give up on this idea. Why? Because the Earth Traveler race's ancestor once thought of this method, but unfortunately, it didn't succeed. Sun Jiugong shook his head and said resentfully. Tang Zheng's eyes lit up and he said excitedly, great minds think alike. This means that this method is feasible. Sun Jiugong looked helplessly at Tang Zheng and said, didn't you hear clearly? The Earth Traveler race didn't succeed. Tang Zheng smiled and said, I don't mean to belittle the Earth Traveler race, but I haven't tried it myself, so I definitely won't be satisfied. Sun Jiugong said, you won't turn back until you hit the southern wall. You have guts, but I still have to say that this method won't work. Tang Zheng clearly wasn't convinced. It's precisely because my ancestor once tried this method that I happen to know the answer to your question. The God race's power of faith comes from 9 worlds. Apart from the God realm, There are 8 other worlds, but each world in the God realm have spatial restrictions. Tang Zheng remembered this and said, there are actually 9 worlds. Apart from the God realm, Fengdu must be one of them. Of course, this is something everyone knows. Fengdu was snatched from the 9 underworlds by the God race. The other 7 worlds are even larger than Fengdu and contribute even more power of faith. Tang Zheng said, the world I came from is one of them. There are 6 other worlds. Where are they? Chapter 1880. Tang Zheng looked at the 6 worlds and asked, do you know what these worlds are and where they are? Sun Jiugong smiled bitterly. Of course I do. Fine. I'll tell you everything. Obviously, Sun Jiugong didn't think that Tang Zheng could do anything, but he didn't know what to do, so he could only tell him everything. Tang Zheng immediately listened attentively. These worlds are very complicated. Aside from the God realm, there are 2 other worlds. Fengdu, Ghost realm, Devil realm, Monster realm, Phoenix realm, and Dragon realm. Tang Zheng's eyes widened in shock. Among the worlds he knew, aside from Sky Beyond and 9 underworlds, they were all worlds where the God race's power of faith came from. Most importantly, there were 2 more worlds, which Tang Zheng didn't expect. Aside from that, what were the Devil realm, Monster realm, and Phoenix realm? He didn't know anything. Clan leader Sun, can you tell me more about the human realm, Devil realm, Demon realm and Phoenix realm? Tang Zheng asked. As long as I know, I will tell you everything. Sun Jiugong began to talk non-stop. The so-called 2 worlds, one of them was the world Tang Zheng came from, and the other was similar to his world. Humans were also endless and were the absolute masters of everything. Of course, there were some differences, such as the world structure, cultivation methods, and systems, which were different from Tang Zheng's world. Tang Zheng had already guessed that there were more than one human world in the vast universe, so he wasn't surprised. He just sighed that the humans of the other world were enslaved by the God race and became the source of their power of faith. They were really brothers in the same boat, breathing together and sharing the same fate. Obviously, that world didn't have a genius like Tang Zheng. They didn't recognize their fate and didn't fight for it. In addition, the Devil realm was the world of the demon god. It wasn't hard to understand their worship of the God race just by hearing the name. The Devil realm was full of demon gods, as if it was a simulation of the God race. The Monster realm was also a world of the monster race. There were no humans. Tang Linger was a demon, so she definitely had something in common with the demons of the demon realm. The Phoenix realm was very similar to the Dragon realm, but the Phoenix race lived in the Phoenix realm. Like the Dragon race, they were revered as divine beasts by humans and were extremely powerful. That's all I know. I'll tell you everything. As for the specific locations of these worlds, our ancestors have explored them one by one. Sun Jiugong said as he took out an ancient map. Tang Zheng was overjoyed. He quickly took the map and unfolded it. Shwa! A ray of light rose up from the map and changed unpredictably above everyone's head before finally turning into a cluster of nebulas. There were 9 bright spots in this nebula, shining brightly. Nebula diagram. Bai Luo blurted out. Sun Jiugong nodded. Yes, it is. This is the nebula map that our ancestor painstakingly drew. The 9 bright spots marked on the nebula map are the 9 corresponding worlds, which are the worlds from which the God race's faith power originates. Tang Zheng curiously looked at the nebula map. This was his first time seeing a nebula map, so he couldn't help but be curious. He stared with wide eyes and immersed himself in it, not saying a word. Sun Jiugong and Bai Luo saw him immersed in it, so they also held their breaths and quietly looked at him. Sun Jiugong had already looked at the nebula map countless times, but he didn't have any insights. Apart from the locations of the 9 worlds, there was nothing else. However, the same nebula map looked completely different in Tang Zheng's eyes. Wonderful! This is truly wonderful. How come I've never thought of using the nebula to mark the locations of the worlds? Conventional maps are no longer suitable. Only a 3-dimensional map like the nebula map can mark the locations of the worlds. This made him subconsciously think of the heavenly chess. Using the world as the chessboard, how grand it was. However, Tang Zheng now had a deeper level of understanding. My previous thoughts and knowledge were still too limited. Using the world as the chessboard can't be considered truly grand. using the universe as the chessboard and playing the heavenly chess on this nebula, using the worlds of the stars as chess pieces, only then can the heavenly chess power be maximized. Tang Zheng suddenly laughed. He now knew why the Earth Traveler race's ancestors had failed. They didn't know about the heavenly chess and couldn't use such terrifying power, so they naturally couldn't succeed. However, Tang Zheng was different. He had the heavenly chess and was very proficient in it. As long as he had enough time to study it thoroughly and successfully play the heavenly chess, the result would be completely different. Sun Jiugong and Bai Luo were shocked to see Tang Zheng suddenly laugh. Sun Jiugong nervously asked, "Tang Zheng, what's wrong?" Tang Zheng came back to his senses and looked at Sun Jiugong with a smile. Sun Jiugong was confused by his gaze. "Is there a problem with this nebula map?" Tang Zheng shook his head with a smile. "There's no problem at all. In fact, it's very important. It's enlightened me and helped me think through many key problems." Sun Jiugong's old face turned red. He had studied the nebula map countless times but had come up empty-handed. However, Tang Zheng was enlightened with a single glance. The difference was too great. "What key problems have you thought through?" Bai Luo didn't understand and asked curiously. Tang Zheng smiled mysteriously. "You'll know when I've verified it." Bai Luo nodded regretfully. Sun Jiugong came back to his senses and said, "The nebula map is a pure waste in my hands. Since you've comprehended it, I'll give it to you." A treasured sword is given to a hero, only then will it not be covered in dust. Tang Zheng said in shock, "The nebula map is so precious. The Earth Traveler race's ancestors must have spent a lot of time and effort to successfully draw it." Sun Jiugong waved his hand and said, "You're exaggerating. The nebula map is useless in my hands and has even lost its value. If I give it to you, you'll definitely make full use of its value. That way, you won't be wasting the ancestors' efforts." Sun Jiugong's words were sincere. Tang Zheng no longer hesitated and waved his hand, taking the nebula map into his hand and rolling it up. "Patriarch Sun, don't worry. I definitely won't let the Earth Traveler race's ancestors' efforts go to waste." Tang Zheng promised firmly. Sun Jiugong nodded with a gratified smile. "What are you going to do next? Are you going to these worlds?" Sun Jiugong guessed curiously. Tang Zheng generously admitted, "Yes. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you'll never be defeated. I'll visit these worlds one by one. Perhaps, only by going deep into these worlds will I be able to think of a perfect way to completely cut off the source of the God race's power of faith." Sun Jiugong didn't think that Tang Zheng would succeed before, but at this moment, he couldn't help but be shaken. Could he really succeed? Chapter 1881. In the following days, Tang Zheng taught the Earth Traveler the unworldly divine art and spread the power of faith, benefiting the Earth Traveler race greatly. What Umo hadn't expected was that Sun Dezhuang and Bai Luo were the first to establish the divine bridge. Even the Sun clan leader was a step behind. At the same time, Tang Zheng's prestige was unparalleled. No matter where he went, the Earth Traveler race would treat him with respect and didn't dare slight him in the slightest. Tang Zheng would often stand in a world of ice and snow, gazing at the main peak and speculating about what Yuanying's avatar was doing. In truth, it wasn't difficult for Tang Zheng to guess Yuanying's plan. He was walking the path of the upper echelons. He wanted to gather all the experts in the world and grow stronger step by step until he could contend against the God race. Tang Zheng didn't think this plan would work after some analysis. The God race's strength was unquestionable. A few more Sage Realm experts wouldn't be able to turn the tables and defeat them. Yuanying's avatar was wishful thinking. It was too simple. Of course, with Yuanying's avatar bearing the brunt and becoming the most eye-catching target, Tang Zheng was practically invisible and wouldn't be easily discovered by the God race. Once the Earth Traveler race's cultivation was on the right track, Tang Zheng knew it was time for him to leave. Clan leader Sun looked at Tang Zheng with a complicated expression. He had been racking his brains to figure out Tang Zheng's identity all this time, but in the end, he discovered that everything was in vain. None of his guesses were valid. A feeling of reverence arose spontaneously in his heart. He looked at Tang Zheng with a complicated gaze and asked, "Are you going to those worlds?" Tang Zheng smiled and said, "Yes." Now, in the human realm, the dragon realm, and the ghost realm all regarded Tang Zheng as a god spirit. The god race was overtaken by the god race. Sooner or later, the god race would discover this serious situation. This was much more serious than the nascent soul avatar, this uninvited guest. At that time, these three worlds would definitely attract a large army of the god race, not just one. Tang Zheng was racing against time. He had to cut off the god race's power of faith before they moved. Success! Clan leader Sun cupped his hands in greeting. Tang Zheng smiled and nodded before leaving the Hongjun mountain range alone. Bai Luo stayed behind. Amidst the waving of the arms, Tang Zheng stepped on the wind and disappeared into the snow that filled the sky. Tang Zheng had studied the nebula map thoroughly. Not only did he have the coordinates of those few worlds, but he also marked the coordinates of the netherworld and heavens beyond on the nebula map. I'll make a trip to the human world first and see what's the difference between it and my world. Tang Zheng's mind flickered as he urged the space principles to open a space gate. He stared at the space gate in a daze for a moment before a flash of inspiration appeared in his mind. He subconsciously widened his eyes, and one thought after another surged in his mind like a tide. His mind was in a mess as his thoughts drifted. The spatial restriction is the key to isolating the various worlds. Only by comprehending the laws of space can one pass through the various worlds. To the god race, these few worlds are completely open to them because the god race has mastered the laws of space. However, to the natives of these few worlds, they have no way to pass through to the god realm. In fact, they have no way to pass through to the other worlds. Tang Zheng's eyes lit up bit by bit as his thoughts became clearer. Because they haven't comprehended the laws of space, and because their strength is too low, they have no way to jump to the other high-level worlds. The god realm is the highest level of these few worlds. The god race can go from the god realm to the other worlds, but the other worlds have no way to go to the god realm. Unless they are like me and Yuanying's doppelganger, they can cultivate to godhood. The power of faith can pass through the spatial restriction between the various worlds without any obstruction. This is based on the existing laws of space. Once the laws of space change, the power of faith will definitely not be able to smoothly pass from the various worlds to the god realm. In addition, the new laws of space will also prevent the god realm from reaching the other worlds. This can protect these weak worlds. From now on, as long as they haven't comprehended the new laws of space, the experts of the other worlds will not interfere with these worlds. Tang Zheng's eyes became brighter and brighter like the stars. He looked at the spatial gate and laughed. God race, oh god race, you never dreamed that I would come up with this idea. Tang Zheng's intuition told him that this idea was feasible. However, it was not easy to truly change the laws of space. This was a huge project that required a great ability. He could only visit these few worlds and gain a deep understanding of each world. Only then would he be able to change the laws of space. He stepped into the spatial gate in high spirits. The spatial gate closed, and a moment later, he appeared in another world. Tang Zheng stood above the 9 heavens, overlooking the vast land. There were mountains, lakes and oceans. There were many similarities with Tang Zheng's mortal world. With a thought, he flew over the mountains, lakes, oceans, and bustling streets like a ray of light. Suddenly, he stopped and looked at a majestic mountain peak below. At the peak of this mountain, there was a magnificent temple. The incense was flourishing, and believers were gathered. This was not the main point. The main point was that there was a dense power of faith lingering on the mountain peak. It was difficult to see with the naked eye, but Tang Zheng could see it clearly. This was the power of faith of the god race. Tang Zheng transformed into an ordinary person and landed on the mountain. He looked up and saw 3 familiar words. Ordinary Balance Mountain. He was stunned. He felt as if he had traveled through time and space. Haha, my hometown has an ordinary balance mountain. This place is also an ordinary balance mountain. It's really fate. Tang Zheng walked into the temple with interest. There were no cultivators here. Instead, he saw a few martial artists. Could it be that this world only has martial artists? He shook his head and did not think too much about it. He walked into the main hall. A statue of a god sat at the top of the main hall. It was dignified without being angry. The believers were kneeling at its feet, kowtowing and praying devoutly. Tang Zheng looked at the statue quietly. He could feel the aura of the god race from it. Wisps of power of faith rose from the believers like smoke. They gathered on top of the statue and soared up, passing through the top of the temple and into the 9 heavens, disappearing without a trace. The god race has thousands of incarnations. There must be statues of the god race in those 1,000-year-old temples. If every statue is destroyed, it will be a blow to the god race. Of course, this would not be of much use. On the contrary, it would alert the enemy. Tang Zheng naturally would not do this. He stood out from the crowd of devout believers and attracted a lot of attention. Someone was already walking toward him. Tang Zheng smiled and left the main hall. The other party quickly caught up and seemed to be staring at Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng was surprised. The other party had sharp eyes. They only met briefly and seemed to have seen through something. Tang Zheng strolled leisurely. He left the temple and came to the back of the mountain. He stood in front of the cliff and looked into the distance. At the foot of the mountain was a city. Bang bang. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.